Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion. I am Peter. Joining me on this season six part two review is Phil. How you
Hey,
doing? You guys may remember Phil from the part one recap. So we're going to be going through part two with spoilers. So if you guys have not yet seen part two nor completed it, you may want to avoid this recap until afterwards because we're gonna get into it. Get into all of it.
yeah.
Phil, let's start off with kind of your first impressions of part two. Yeah, I'll just leave it vague like that.
Okay. Were you meaning as a whole, as
Yeah,
like a whole
yeah,
subset?
yeah. So
Um,
after watching part two and processing it a little bit, how did you feel about it? Were you satisfied based off of some things from part one, and like did part one set things up well, that kind of stuff.
I definitely think it was an improvement over part one. There was a lot more going on, as far as like the plot goes. But there was I thought it was kind of a mixed bag too. There were some low points as well. But overall, I thought it was better. There was a lot more going on. I felt like in part one, I really only gravitated towards the Tori storyline.
Yeah.
Where here there's, multiple different ones that were kind of going, uh, that were happening that this seemed a little more interesting. The focus wasn't just primarily on Tories. So,
What were some things that? No, well, I'll save that question. Let me kind of give my initial thing. I really enjoyed part two. I thought it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of humor. And the humor I thought were um necessarily wasn't the right word. I thought it was just the right amount of humor. Like I didn't think it was
yeah,
silly.
I agree.
There's certain parts where like some people may roll their eyes and be like, oh, all right, that's a little cheesy. We'll get into that because
Yeah.
I think we both had a well, we talked about it yesterday. We kind of um you said there was a specific scene. You said that if you were watching it by yourself, you probably wouldn't have laughed,
Yeah.
but
But
because of
seeing you
me.
dying, yeah, it did kind of make it pretty funny. So yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get into those. But yeah, the humor, there was more humor than I had anticipated. But a lot of the writers have comedic backgrounds, and um, the original movies had cheesy moments and humor in it
Yeah.
in itself. So I still feel that they kind of carry on the tone from the films at parts. But the other thing that I kind of came away after watching part two was like I thought it was also brutal. Like
Oh, for
so
sure.
yeah, some of the fight sequences were just wild and things we hadn't seen before. One of the moments that stick out to me because visually this is like one of those things that I thought was kind of brutal is like one of the final fights between Quan and I think the character's name is Diego. I might have to check
Okay.
that. The other the Spanish Hawk,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And when Juan does the move where he kicks him like just right in the head and knocks him out, and the way he falls,
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just like he was knocked out standing up. And you don't usually when people collapse, they collapse a certain way. This dude was just like erect and falls over like a tower.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
There's something about that
Like
seems so.
he was just like knocked out
Yeah,
while
just
yeah.
yeah. We haven't seen that before in Cobra Kai, and that sequence at the end,
Actually, no one ever really gets knocked out before, right? Well, they made it seem like it was kind of at least the first time, or if not, like one of the rare times people just get.
we may not have had a knockout in competition
Yeah,
on the show yet because the All Valley, it is what
it's
it is,
point
and
fighting and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Because not even in the films, right? Because it's still competition. Trying to think, yeah,
I
yeah.
would say one takeaway I had from the second batch of, are we calling it like the second season or however we second
Yeah,
batch?
either part two or second batch.
All right,
Yeah.
part two. I was really looking forward to part two because I really loved where the storyline with Tori was going on.
Mhm.
Like, she put on a hell of an acting performance throughout that entire first batch, and especially that last episode. And then I was really looking forward to like it looked like they were going to build up the Korean Cobra Kais and
Right.
make them just be a formidable group or show off. There were so many of them, so I was looking forward to like getting to know them
Hmm.
or just beyond Kwan or getting the entire seeing the entire group
Right.
interact. So I was really looking forward to that aspect. And when watching the second batch, I was kind of disappointed that both the things that I felt like had a lot of good momentum
Mm.
um, ended up really not being delivered, or they kind of just pulled back on it. Like in the second batch, the only Cobras that really get any speaking line is Quan for the most part.
Right.
Forgot what the second in command guy's name
Yeah,
was.
Yoon had like one line at least.
You see Yoon just a bit, and you rarely see all of the Cobras together, which is, I mean, the show's called Cobra Kai, and I really
Right.
thought they were trying to set it up for, I mean, at least build them up so that when they get taken down eventually, it means something a little more. And not seeing the Cobras together in formidable ways was interesting. We saw, I think we see that was it the Iron Strike team,
Iron Dragon,
Iron Dragon
Tiger
team,
Strike.
Iron
Yeah,
Dragon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we see the Iron Dragon team like it like fully assembled at least twice. There's like two shots of them. Like, they don't get
yeah.
much screen time, but you see them operating as a team. And very rarely did we get those visuals with the Cobras.
Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of questions, and the what's a little scary is that we only have 5 episodes left of the entire series. It's not even 5 episodes of the season left yet to see. This is it. 5 more episodes. Will they answer a lot of questions that fans have? Or are they gonna completely wrap up storylines, that aren't going to make like the fans continue to question after the show's run. Like, hey, you
Yeah,
guys still have not addressed this. So I felt part two was kind of wrapping up some of the storylines for our tertiary characters,
yeah,
like an Anthony, maybe like a Devin.
and Kenny.
Kenny's is jury still out,
Yeah,
on what his role will be in part three. Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, we'll get into it more. This is still initial thoughts.
I mean, I guess going into part three, his only really motivation is kind of erasing some of the embarrassment that he's talked about, right? Like if he comes away a champion, then it kind of erases all the shame or the embarrassment or the humility he had with his what shit butt viral
Oh yeah,
nickname or whatever,
yeah.
like so his only motivation moving forward is to win, but maybe win collectively as a team, not
Help win. Yeah,
yeah, not
yeah,
necessarily win for himself. So
exactly.
yeah,
And yeah, it's hard because he's not captain. So like I'm thinking like a Hawk and Dimitri. Obviously, they're gonna I feel they're gonna be um, factors in part three as well, but that's not something I feel, they wrapped up and oh the binary brothers are back and then continue having them like in the background, right? Like I think they will still continue to drive the story forward. I mean, let's not forget, like Dimitri and Hawk were also introduced as characters in this second episode, so they were there since day one, so I expect them to be very much part of how the show ends in part three. Um,
I think another thing that I kind of fixated on is I rewatched the first episode, and what kind of glued me to this whole series was the dynamic and the growth between Miguel and Johnny.
mm,
And now we're in the second batch of the final season, and Miguel's kind of more of an afterthought. And Johnny has his own like, his own his own little he has his own things going on, like being a father and leading the team and everything. But like their dynamic, their relationship has been kind of put on pause for a while, at least in the context of the show, right? Like
yeah.
in this one, they don't really interact all that much, other than that one part where Miguel kind of gets embarrassed, or not embarrassed, but irritated at Johnny for
Hmm.
not giving him the praise that he
Right.
deserves, right?
After a victory. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then so after
In
that,
an
then
event.
they just fly home to be with Miguel's mom, But other than that, there's not that many Miguel and Johnny moments, and there hasn't been that many Miguel and Johnny moments. It seems like it's been dwindling down over the
Yeah.
years, and that's kind of the main relationship that I was hoping to see more of when I
Hmm.
first watched the series, like or episode one. It was going to be cool to see what a mentor-mentee relationship would look like from the perspective of the bad guys, right?
Right.
And we haven't really got that. Like, it's lacking. I thought we were going to get a Miyagi and Daniel with those two, and we haven't
Hmm.
really got too many of those.
Not in the last couple of seasons. It's definitely been light on that front. Um, they had some more stuff like early season five,
Hmm.
right? Like the whole Mexico storyline. So they had a lot of interactions then. They come back to the US and I'd have to really sit here and think about it, but I don't think they share too many moments towards the end of season five. But yeah, in this one, I think maybe that's why we have like the plane trip, to kind of dedicate some time specifically for them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I guess you could also write it if they were still in Barcelona. But the other thing is like, man, Carmen continues to be underused, It's just like, oh, it kind of sucks. Like I wish that I don't know, maybe the complications of the pregnancy, that's why we're not hearing her maybe give some of those Amanda lines,
Hmm.
and I know Amanda was part of also the Anthony and Kenny storylines. So what else is there for Carmen? But
There's not that much for her. She's not as connected with
yeah,
all the players,
but
right?
it would be nice if like Miguel was able to call home.
Yeah.
Johnny talked to her a little bit
Yeah,
more on
that's
the
true.
phone too. You know, um, but she had a moment in the hospital that sends them back to the karate. So
Or
it's just that thing. Like there's so many questions that I have after watching part two, but I feel that it's like, oh, we're probably gonna get like an answer or a resolution in part three.
yeah.
You know,
And they panned to people watching it at home, and they
Mhm.
showed all the other Cobras or Miyagi-Dos watching from home. They could have done the same with Carmen too, right?
Right?
She's recovering in the hospital. What more does she have to do?
Yeah,
But of course she's
yeah. Maybe in part three, but maybe that's the other thing too because they wrote in like the complications, which thank goodness it wasn't like real complication. I mean, she lost some blood, and she's recovering from that. But I'm just like, man, they introduced that thing to have them fly back just
well, the
so
complications were
shortly.
pretty big, weren't they? Like they were kind of supposedly maybe life-threatening at one point. That's what they thought, right?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
And but they were able to. It wasn't a C-section, but it was another C word,
Yeah.
I think.
I forgot what it was, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but and mother and daughter doing fine. So that's all that's important. But I'm like, oh, why? I'm still trying to see like the big picture. Like, what was that for? Right? Like, is that something that's gonna come in part three? I mean, like,
I
why was
doubt it.
that
I
necessary?
think it's just to further the relationships with those two, or I don't know.
Yeah, because again, I'm just like, why on a plane? Couldn't we just have done that at in Barcelona
You
somehow?
probably could have,
You
yeah.
know?
And I felt like the plane stuff was nice, but they kind of stretch it out too long where other aspects of the show feel rushed. That one
Yeah.
was a little drawn out, right?
I didn't care much for the passenger that was trouble.
Yeah.
You know,
He
um,
got way too many lines for a throwaway person,
he
right?
had more lines than Carmen. You
Yeah.
know, I would have been fine with just them two literally sitting on a plane. Kind of like I don't know if they were drawing inspirations from, but I saw like a lot of Karate Kid Part Two in this, like the plane with Miguel and Johnny. That's kind of like Miyagi and Daniel flying to Okinawa.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty good lengthy sequence, where Miyagi's trying to sleep and Daniel just wouldn't leave him the fuck alone,
Okay. Okay.
right? Trying to ask him questions.
Do you think that was on purpose then? Or
It
was
could
a
be.
callback?
It
Okay.
could be. Like I like to find these connections that mean nothing,
Yeah.
but I see them.
It's still like fan service a little bit, right?
It could
Like,
be.
yeah.
Could be. Like you got the bar stuff in Barcelona, then there was like the bar in um Okinawa,
Yeah.
right? And the ice block challenge, you got a kicking challenge, you know? So there's a few things in there where I'm like, oh, I kind of wonder because part two of Karate Kid takes us abroad. Well, so does part one, oh, well, mainly part two of Cobra Kai season six. So, all right. So, anything you want to kind of ask and kind of get out of the way before we kind of get into like some of the notes that we took?
No, I think that's pretty good.
All right. How about you start off with some of the things?
Um, let's see.
Well, while you're looking it
Yeah.
over, a couple Easter eggs that I kind of found. At one point, Zara was doing like a live, and I think it was in the elevator, and you see like some of her followers kind of chiming in. At one point, you see one of the composers, Zach Robinson, a Grammy Award winner. Oh gosh, if he listens to this, he's gonna really give me shit because he gave me shit about this when I interviewed him for Obliterated.
Okay.
That I got whichever award they were also nominated for for the Weird Al movie. They
Okay.
also composed that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
they won an award for that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he's one of her followers. It's just like, how long have you been competing? I think is what he said. So I noticed it. Uh, that was one Easter egg, and I think there was another one that I wrote. Um, okay, actually, that's all I could think of off the top. Um,
So for me, I really like the confrontation with Sensei Kim and Tori. Like they had some issues that never got resolved before. So when they
mm,
met up
mhm.
again, like they both pretty much verbally said they were both blunt and honest. Like they both didn't like each other. So I thought that was cool. I was hoping for a payoff on that, and I don't really think we got one
Maybe not
between those two. So maybe it's on the back burner for the next batch of shows. But
it could be if you're referring to some of their grievances that they aired out early on.
yeah,
I wonder if that was to kind of set up like Corey's able to say question Sensei Kim in the last episode the way she did, right?
yeah,
Like the friends, the boyfriends, like was it all worth it? Like the karate stuff.
uh-huh.
And she's like, yes, like, or I kind of forget the whole dialogue and speech, but I liked that, and I wonder if like that talk of like you know what, I don't like you,
Yeah.
and so throwing that out there and they knowing that of each other,
Yeah,
they can now kind of open up and ask maybe some more personal questions.
I agree. Like one person sacrificed their entire personal life for the betterment of karate,
Yeah.
and then, maybe have some, I don't know, mental issues from it, right?
Hmm.
And then Tori, has friends, family, tries to have balance, I guess, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's like you kind of see the dichotomy of both, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Let's go back a little bit early. Let's talk about the look of the Sekai Tekai.
I thought it was cool. There was one part that when they framed the set in a way or the stage in a way, definitely gave me Bloodsport Kumite vibes, and I'm pretty sure that had been intentional.
It
They even talked about it being an
right.
underground fight, so
Well, yeah, in part one, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think it was in the first episode, didn't you? No, no, you went back and watched Ace the Degenerate, right?
yeah,
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 okay.
yeah.
So and I'll ask you about that, but in episode 601, Peacetime in the Valley, before they reveal, was that the same one? I think so. I think before they reveal Miyagi Fang,
Okay, okay,
I think I'm mixing up the details, and funny because my Facebook group they're starting to kind of just go and do the rewatches,
okay.
and that was yesterday's episode.
Awesome.
But we
We were
were
watching it.
watching, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
part two, and so I think it was that episode where they said, oh, it's like Gladiator and the Bloodsport all in one kind of thing.
Okay.
So there is a very there's a nod to that for sure. I mean they dropped it, and then Bloodsport was shown at the drive-in in season four, so they're very mindful of that. Bloodsport, The Warriors, was also an inspiration, the 1977, 78 movie.
I'm not sure. I'm not
Oh,
familiar with that
oh,
one.
that one has a bunch of like gangs in New York, and it's like just one night out in the town, just like all the craziness that happens, and then focusing on the warriors and their encounters with like other gangs and stuff.
Okay.
But a lot of the gangs, they have a very specific look. Like there's one that are like guys who are they're wearing like baseball uh, like uniforms, and they even have face painted or something. I might be mixing up things, but I don't know. Not having seen it as a kid or whatever and growing up with it, watching it as an adult, I was like, like yeah, it
Didn't
took
age
a
well.
no, not it's not that. It was still a very good movie, still enjoyable. But I thought like the aesthetic, I was like, oh, a little cheesy, but I'm not privy to the gang culture of New York back
Okay.
then, in the late 70s. But anyway, all that to say that a lot of those gangs they also had like their logos on the back of their jackets or whatever.
Got it.
And then we kind of see this with like the geese in season six.
Okay.
And so there's some inspirations drawn out from some of these movies.
Interesting.
Um, but you didn't. So there was some criticisms in some of the first look like pictures and stuff of the tournament
Yeah.
that like, oh, there's no audience. Like, oh, it looks so small.
That's what I was
Did
thinking
you?
too. I think I mentioned that yesterday. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, that one shot that gave me Bloodsport vibes was really cool. It brought back nostalgia, and that's what
Hmm.
this whole the best parts of the show are when they tap into that nostalgia. But at the same time, I rewatched, is it called Ace Degenerate, the first
Yeah.
episode, and I was like, man, like you think of that, or you think of just the Karate Kid one, and you just see how grand the All Valley was with the audience, and the audience played a big part in it.
Hmm.
Like you hear the crowd roar or whatever, you just hear the noise, and then when the guy says, I mean, I don't know, just various lines, and it just seemed very grand. And this is supposed to be this super prestigious event, and I get that it's underground, but it's underground, yet you're going to put it on TV. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and there was just no audience. It didn't look that big. The mats didn't look that cool. It just doesn't seem like
Huh.
it doesn't give me the vibes of a grand event, you
That's
know?
interesting. Yeah.
And
Sorry.
the show's done well, right? Like,
Hmm.
so you would think that there'd be a budget for something at least a little better, or they could probably do some CGI tricks or whatever, just to make it look bigger than it was.
I
Especially if they're going to reference Gladiator in terms of that, or the
yeah.
brutality. Maybe we didn't really see much of that.
I feel the stuff that we wish we can get in terms of aesthetics and the look of things, it's probably because higher up, like the budget, like you said, probably. But yeah, the criticism going in from people in the fandom, with like the first look images and even some of the footage that came out, including the trailer, they're like, oh, it just looks too small. Actually, for me at least, when I watched it, I kind of forgot that. Like I'm looking at that digital scoreboard and I think
Yeah,
that looks dope.
yeah,
And already to me the look of that makes that feel big.
yeah,
And there's already spectators. There's 16 dojos in attendance. I don't know how many fighters in each dojo.
yeah.
And so it's loud. And again I forget that there are no regular spectators there. It's just dojos.
Uh-huh.
And so the sound, I kind of forget all of that.
I guess if you
Mm.
want to go, I mean, like you could go the opposite direction. Then if you want it to be underground, make it grand. It could be in like a huge like airplane hangar warehouse, like in the '90s or something like that, and have all the
Guile's stage for Street
yeah,
Fighter.
yeah. You could have all the dojos surrounded there, and that looks like this grand space, and you could hear the echoes and the sound or whatever. I mean, echoes in the audio, like because
Yeah,
it's so big. But it just seemed like not a big event. Like I wouldn't be impressed going into that.
I want.
Especially when you're talking, like there's a big part of that first episode talking about sponsor this, sponsor that, people with money. Then
Mm,
they show all the coaches and whoever just eating nice spreads, and it's like, all right, you spent all your money on the catering and the food, and you didn't put anything into the venue. That's kind of weird.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
It took me out of the immersion just a little bit,
Mm,
but I forgot about it real quick,
sure,
like
sure. I do just to kind of add to this idea of maybe not enough budget for some of these things. I wonder if, like, because I don't know any of this stuff, right? I do wonder if the filming in I don't know if it resets every season, right? Budget wise, but like for season 5, they went to Puerto Rico to film the Mexico scenes, and
yeah,
then they actually went to Barcelona to film a lot of the exterior stuff.
uh-huh,
So I wonder if that, right, does that come out of the budget? I'm assuming so.
yeah.
If that's the case, then this is probably why we didn't, couldn't get like
Well, they had a high school gym that looked cool in the All Valley for season one,
some
right?
people. Yes, because some
It
people thought 4 seemed even smaller, but
I mean, it's smaller. It is smaller than the movie ones, but you could attribute that to like the. Didn't they say that the karate participation has gone down since Daniel won? So it kind of made sense that the venue was smaller.
that does make sense. Yeah,
You know
you're
what I
right.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was kind of their way
It was bigger
of
in the 80s,
yeah, it
you
was
know.
bigger before.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So Sekatekai. Let's start kind of around episode 6. So that's the first episode of the second batch here. A lot of it does take place at the hotel. And this is kind of like the first few days. So we kind of start off with like seeing everybody at the dojos, and they kind of set it up as if like Team Korea already knows who Team USA is. And so I was a little surprised on my first watch that when they're passing each other in the lobby, Kwan, and maybe they knew who they were, but now Kwan has a chance to actually say something to them.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so I kind of like that interaction. But again, you see that and you're like, ooh, cool. I can't wait to see more of this,
yeah.
of the shit talking and Kwan just, finding his in place in the opportune moments, where Miyagi-Do's like at their lows.
Correct.
Yeah, so yeah, it's unfortunate we didn't get that, and then we got Iron Dragons. So it's kind of interesting how things play out, but we'll get there.
Yeah, most of the conflicts seem like they were targeted to the individuals rather than like team centric,
Mm,
right? Like they were targeting Robbie for not I forgot what it was, but like not to scratch it, but it
mm,
just seems like everything focused on the individuals or the captains rather than the whole team.
yeah, yeah,
Yet they kept on emphasizing it's a team competition at one point, right?
right.
So
Yeah, the stuff with the Sekai tournament, there's so many things I don't understand, and I don't even want to try to,
yeah,
you know what I
we
mean?
we talk
So
about sponsors. It's like
yeah,
usually why would you need sponsors once you're already at the event? Like usually for teams, like they're going to like locally, they'd be like going
Hmm.
to Little League Baseball World Series or
Yeah,
Olympics. That's when you get a sponsor to get to the event, but they're already there. So it's like, what do you need money for after the fact? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that never really explained it all that well.
To continue your, I mean, I don't know. We briefly spoke about it while we were watching it. Pause to kind of talk about a little, and I think I made a comment like, is it, well, if they continue to advance, could that be a thing where the sponsors, where they're like, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna keep investing money in you guys, paying for your lodging and all that stuff because you guys continue to advance, and we believe in your dojo and your brand.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
It just didn't really make sense to
mhm.
me. They emphasized the whole sponsor thing quite a bit.
Yeah. It definitely got brought up by like Zara at one point for sure. And
Yeah.
I mentioned this too during our watch, but I do wonder if that is also something they wrote to have Chosen come in and be a bit of a problem and kind of embarrass Miyagi-Do a little bit, because he hasn't really had like an L, right?
Hmm.
Like Johnny, everybody has basically had something where they're not so happy about that they did, right? And um, Chosen hasn't really had something like
Like
that.
humbling moments, you mean?
A moment where they need to be humbled,
No, no, no.
or
I mean, he hasn't had any down. He has rarely had down moments.
right,
Yeah,
right,
he's
and
won fights.
hmm
Yeah,
yeah, and so and even his slaughter from Terry Silver, like he ended up living
yeah,
through that. So,
yeah,
Terry Silver couldn't keep the gasoline down.
yeah.
But do you think like that's what it could be? Like, well, how do we give Chosen, something where right he can embarrass, whatever. Oh, well, if he drinks, he's not so great, out in public, and maybe what is something that can kind of add like embarrassment to Miyagi-Do? Oh, one of their senseis is drunk at some gathering with bigwigs,
Yeah,
for
I get it,
instance.
but that was a little over the top for me. Like they could have had chosen just be all sad about not. I mean, the towel guy in
Yeah,
Kumiko without making a
tall
big
guy.
scene, without making a big scene like that. I felt that was kind of a little bit about a character for him to act that way, when he's typically the North Star voice of reason for a
Yeah,
lot of them. I get that he was drunk, but I don't really know if I would buy that that's in his character to be like that. I guess,
yeah.
I mean, throwing vases around, crying in public in front of others, and
A flower triggering him.
yeah, like I don't really know if I buy all those things. It just seemed out of place for his character. It felt.
But you still thought it was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
funny. I mean, dude, I mean, Yuji steals so many scenes that he's in. He nails it every single time. I'm always so impressed every time I see him on the screen.
I love the stance that he gets into when I don't know if it was probably security, like when he first walks in and he's talking about like, Miyagi-Do, remember that name, or whatever he does, and he
Yeah,
gets in
that's right.
this like very specific stance. It's not even just a fighting stance, it's like a stylistic flowing stance that he gets into because I think even like one of his leg is like forward as if you know what I mean.
I I vaguely remember that.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking like
yeah,
I don't think it was wushu, but you know how wushu is very flowy.
yeah.
It was like Chosen did this thing and his like one leg kind of like goes out forward as if he's about to get into some Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon shit.
Okay,
I don't know. It was just very funny because it's like I think it's very like you're just used to like people like waving the hand off and then put your dips up.
yeah,
But his was like he was about to throw down fighting karate.
yeah.
So. I did like that. What did you think about his trip to Okinawa?
I mean, I thought there was enough time spent on it. Like it was just a brief little flashback or a little brief little scene, right?
Yeah,
He just goes back, knocks on Kumiko's door, and then this towel guy shows up, and it was pretty much the end of the scene after that, right? Like it was pretty quick, wasn't it? So it
yeah.
was appropriate amount of time to,
I feel it's ambiguous, but
yeah.
I'll ask you anyway. Do you think that was written to address that relationship, or do you think there's something more to it that we'll find out in part three? Do you think
It doesn't matter really. I mean, they could expand on it, or they could just end it there. I mean, it,
either way, right? Like
yeah,
it was addressed.
yeah.
If you guys may not like it, but we mentioned it in
May-
part two.
Maybe they'll wait for, fan testimonials or podcasts like this to see what direction to take it on. But like, it doesn't
Well,
really.
it's already been filmed at this point.
But yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it. Oh, it has. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah, it's
okay.
all done.
But I was gonna say, like maybe they decide, hey, this guy wasn't really a husband or something like that. So like maybe he's still in the picture if you want to go that
That's what I
direction.
think, man. Like,
It was implied more of like a hookup kind of,
yeah,
or a boyfriend of the month or something rather than a serious relationship, right? Like
yeah. I just okay. So I'm still holding out for a wedding sequence.
between them two.
No, no, no. I'm sorry, Johnny and Carmen.
Okay,
So I'm still holding out for that. And my vision of it is like seeing a lot of characters again,
yeah,
right? So if that were to happen, um, I've always been the mind of like they don't need to hook up Chosen and Kumiko. They don't need
no,
to be together.
no,
They're very good friends, and that could be that. But then like this thing where they had Chosen and Sensei Kim hook up, I'm like, man, if Kumiko comes back and may reciprocate those feelings, now we're in a bit of a well, he did it. Well, they're not together, so that's not
yeah.
that big of a deal. But like now is like where does that relationship with Kim and Chosen go? Does she show up, at the wedding? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is all like, fan fiction
Well,
type
that's
stuff,
that's
but
that's that's the best part about the show, right? Is just letting your mind go wild,
right,
thinking about all
right.
these things. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like with him and Kim, it was more just a random hookup rather than any kind of real relationship. At least
Random
it,
hookup,
it was just more
yes.
convenience out of convenience and opportunity, right?
Yeah, but I feel of the two, I think since Kim took more from that than he did,
Yeah,
you know.
but it could very well turn into something, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know if you have more to add
Oh,
to.
I just love the whole foreshadowing of that whole Sensei Kim and
Let's
Chosen.
talk about it because I was
Uh-huh.
gonna say because I
The,
was like,
the foreshadowing was fantastic because
yeah,
she sees him just making a fool of himself at that sponsor dinner thing.
right. So
Uh,
she's there, she
Yeah,
sees that.
she sees that, and you're wondering, oh, they showed her looking at that on purpose. Like, I wonder how that's going to pay off. And then when
Yeah.
it paid off so magnificently.
Yeah, because she really pushed his buttons, and like the tension was high and real.
Yeah, and
You
it,
know,
it felt authentic for both characters, because she's just very one-dimensional, one way,
she
just
is.
super angry, and then you see her softening up just a little bit, and I just loved how subtle it was. You actually get to see that range from Sensei Kim. I'm not sure the name.
Alicia, Hannah
Yeah,
Kim. Yeah,
and I just like, even though it was so subtle, I just loved it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was like it made me think. I was like, I think I said it out loud to you. I was like, are they gonna hook up? And then like literally like 10 seconds later they kissed, and I was like, oh whoa.
I may have
Yeah.
either purposely avoided answering, or I
Yeah.
might have just like, dude, shut up and just watch.
So yeah, just the little subtle cues. Like
Yeah,
I just thought that was fantastic. The writing was great on that with the foreshadowing and everything. I
yeah.
was like, man, that was really well done.
It was earned.
Yeah.
The idea of it, not knowing that was what was going to happen, the idea of it, I was not on board for it. So
Oh,
that was one of the, I think, 7 or 8 pictures that was a first look of part two.
okay.
It's Kim and Chosen in the bar standing in front of each other,
Uh-huh.
right before the kissing, obviously, and it looks, I forgot what I said, man. I would love to go back and well, I mean, I can do it, but I'll go back and listen to what I said when the pictures came out.
Yeah.
But people were very much like, "Oh, they're hooking up," and I was like, "Man, I think she just found him in a vulnerable spot and is but whatever I said." And I was just like, it's not gonna happen. But what I did do was take that picture and I shared it on Instagram. And I was like, no one can resist the Taguchi charm,
Yeah.
and if not knowing exactly what was gonna happen, and so.
Yeah.
You
And,
know,
and and then like there was reasons for her to even be open to it too, right? Like she wasn't really like, I think her and Sensei Kim and Kreese kind of had maybe a difference of philosophy at one point. They were
mhm,
talking about
mhm,
the national
absolutely.
field,
Yep.
like so they set that part up so perfectly. I loved everything that went into it. Yeah, even down to the interaction with Kim and Kreese, how that figured into it too. I thought it
Mhm.
was great.
I so I teased it earlier when we kind of first started, but the Chosen riding off an electric scooter.
Yeah, you were dying. You were rolling on the floor. I was like, I thought that was funny. It was. Yeah, I mean,
It's
Chosen steals so many scenes that I'm
yeah.
like so used to it, but
It's got to be one of the funniest things I've ever
yeah,
seen Chosen do. Like,
really,
yeah,
you put it
well,
that high?
because like I didn't really give a shit about Chosen in season three all that much. I loved his return. I was just like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" I was like,
Right.
"This isn't my Chosen,"
Okay.
but that's just how I felt because I
You're
didn't.
very protective of him too.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't think it's that. Maybe,
Yeah.
but also the last time we saw him. was part two. He had a knife to Kumiko's neck, and shamed by the village. And so it's like, okay, what we didn't know what they were going to write for him, right? We didn't know that he left, and then Kumiko found him, and basically he just grew up, matured, and learned from all the bullshit that he did. And so, like, people change, people grow and stuff, but I wasn't expecting that. I was just like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Hmm.
Daniel is gonna, so I think my thought was like, oh, he's gonna go out looking for help, and like, who else knows Miyagi-Do stuff is well chosen because he
Yeah.
was trained by his uncle. And so, yeah, I didn't know that it was gonna be like a new version of Chosen. But that was just a thing back then. Like, that's one of the first, aside from the ones that were going to be part of the show proper, he was one of the first legacy characters brought back,
Yep.
right? Kumiko was just brought back the previous episode. Ali has not been back at this point, and everybody else was basically shown in the first season, right? The mom came back in the first season.
Pretty much all the women only get one episode, really,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, not enough for sure. And then the OG Cobras show up in season two,
Hmm.
but that's kind of a wonder for them. But then Bobby Brown comes back in season three for one scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, but most of the yeah, I just thought that it was going to be more of Karate Kid 2 Chosen, but I'll tell you what, season five, at the very least, the finale of season four, when we see him, I was like, hell yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's the vibe. That's my Chosen right there.
But when Chosen came back, they did give you Karate Kid Part 2 vibes
Well, he was,
before they, like he's messing with him,
I know, I know, but though I think
That was the intention, though.
yes,
That was well done, I thought.
sure,
No?
but
No? All right.
so the reveal of it, I was like, joke, it undercutted
Yeah.
that whole news.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
All
for
right.
me,
All right.
I was
Fair
like,
enough.
so he's not that bad. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got it, but it's not as overt, right, as I wanted it to be. As Quan is, right? Like, making Dimitri flinch. I love that.
It's funny that you're talking about this because, like, when you took me up to meet Yuji,
Mhm.
I think I remember saying to him, I was like, I'm very disappointed. And he goes, why? And he goes, you're so nice in person. Like, you were so damn evil. Like, I wanted to hate you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you might hand me the drink of this.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about. Let's see. What some early notes that you have? You want to talk a little bit more about
Let's
Team
see.
Korea?
Um, I want to say when we see them, I was just like, just even the first few shots, it's like you don't really see them as a group, and I was wondering, oh, yeah, that always stayed in the back of my mind. You just see Yoon
Yeah,
and Kwan
yeah, fun, yeah.
and Tori, and Tori's. I think they kind of overdid it throughout this whole second block, but she was so adamant about just being by herself and not really connecting with her team. I thought they kind of beat that over the head, a little too much. And
Yeah, my reasoning for that, to not like dwell on it too much, because I feel why I'm very apologetic, to things that happen in the show. Like there's certain things that don't bother me as much as I feel that it may, to other fans.
mhm.
Um, because I cover it, in the interviews and stuff like that, I want to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah,
So I let things roll off my back a little bit more.
okay,
So that way I can continue consuming this, keep watching episodes over and over
yeah.
for my research. Because like if things bother me so much where like watching it kind of becomes a chore just for the purpose of the podcast, and like I'm not having a good time.
Sure, you're just checking out, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just
So
turning off your brain for a little bit.
I turn off my brain a lot, in these last few seasons. You mentioned how you watch Today's Degenerate to kind of go back and kind of get the feel again, and how it felt a lot more grounded back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have like a severed finger, like in season five yet, and
Yeah, that episode, that first episode just felt like a direct continuation from the movies. And when we finished the
mm,
second batch, I was like, this doesn't even feel familiar to the first season. It doesn't really necessarily feel familiar to the OG movies for me.
yeah.
And
But
that's
is
fine.
that a bad thing? It's
It's just
different.
different. It's
Yeah,
just different. I mean, I'm not as hardcore as you, but yeah, I still watch because I'm really invested in the show, but my enjoyment is different.
yeah.
Like I feel like they don't need to push the envelope in terms of intensity or fights or like physicality. they could make it just as good dealing with the dramas or the human connections, the
Hmm.
relationships. Like what drew me to the show is really just the I don't know, the growth and the friendship and the relationship of Miguel and Johnny, and
Hmm.
we're getting less and less of that as this series progresses, and I don't know, that's just something that I'm disappointed with because
Yeah,
I was hoping to see what it looks like for a mentor and a mentee to learn from each other from the perspective of a Cobra Kai,
right.
where you're not really getting that. So
It's so hard because the show is 10 episodes a season, with the
yeah,
exception of season six. We have 15 episodes, but they're all roughly 30 minutes each. Um, these first two batches, the first four episodes were under 40,
yeah,
with their fifth episodes being closer to 50. And so you have so many damn characters, and in part two introduces a lot of different dojos, and so we got new characters from that, and you're finding very little time to spend with the characters that we love, looking for these moments that you are kind of seeking, right?
yeah.
You
But
know?
but at the same time, like the I think the last batch of kids would it would be like more so Anthony, Kenny, and Devin. It's like I like them, and they had probably some of the best I don't know, development or the storylines in the second batch, but really, do you need to be spending that much time on tertiary characters that really just kind of furthered the plot for the main characters before?
Yeah.
And now their storylines don't even involve kind of the main characters or the main kids from the OG kids, I guess.
Hmm.
So I feel like they didn't really need all that time to be spent on them, even though they did it well. I have no complaints with the
Yeah.
execution on that, but like I'd rather kind of have that time go towards some of the OG people or develop some of the bad guys better. Like I was very disappointed with not seeing much from just from the Cobras, really,
Hmm. Yeah.
mainly. Or,
Yeah.
or I would like to see better characterizations for the Iron Dragon.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
they're very one dimensional too, which is I get it. Like they just don't have time to cram everything in there, but I'd rather cut away from Kenny and Devin and Anthony in favor of those people.
I can, yeah, I can see that. And maybe that's just a thing. So many tertiary characters, you want to kind of give them like, a quote unquote send off, again, wrap up their storyline. So that's why we're seeing them. I probably wouldn't have as much criticisms and concerns
Mhm.
of this first two batches if I didn't know that we literally have five more episodes to finish
Yeah,
off the show. So there's stuff like Miguel and Stanford, you know? And so I give that example because, the Sekai Tekai, what's going to happen? Are they going to cancel it because now we have a death? Like, you guys been working up towards this tournament. It's got to continue, right? We have to have a victor, I feel. And
in real life, would you feel that way, or would you want it to cancel if it was?
if it was real life, I think you stop this, like,
Yeah,
postpone
for
it,
sure.
you know?
Especially when there's sponsors involved.
But yeah, yeah, it's too many logistics
Yeah.
and money, all these different things. But for the show, like it's gonna be I feel the show like you continue, right? Like
Yeah.
like that's
Or you cancel it and then make them fight underground, like for real,
oh
outside of the tournament.
is it like I don't know.
What if they cancel the official one and then these guys are like they have so much bad blood that's boiled up, and then they're fighting at docks and stuff outside, you know?
I don't know, man.
No,
Well, because then what's the point of that? I mean, is that official that they continue still?
I think they just want to do like maybe more for you
Because
know,
because the whole point of the Sekai Tekai, right, and
yeah,
wanting to be captains is for that exposure for their futures,
yeah,
all the kids, and even the senseis, right?
yeah. But what did Miyagi say? You don't fight for a tournament. You don't fight for here. You fight for here, right? Like,
Hey, that's Miyagi with some skeletons in his closet, man.
okay,
That's
all
what I
right,
think that is.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it's man,
Yeah, it's funny though, because none of them, only a few of them, right? Or is it just Robbie? Like Robbie's been the only one where he's concerned with being the best. Everyone else, like even like, do you get that from any other characters, bad guys or good guys? Like really, like there's
Miguel wants. I mean, he wants to win, and
as a
and
team, because he was really more about pushing Robbie to be the leader that he could be.
but also at the same time, he's basically saying I would be the better leader,
Yeah,
and so there's that kind of
but
conflict,
leading refers to leading a team, not necessarily like individual.
right?
I want to be the best in the world. Like
It, this isn't. here's a non sequitur for you, but did it frustrate you? I feel it did. Did
Yeah.
it frustrate you how Robbie could not get his head in the game?
Oh yeah. And
Because
it
like
was
Tori's like the
both
magic
of them.
remedy, because remember the in episode 5 of the first batch, the fight for captain, right?
Yeah.
Robbie couldn't get it together until he saw Tori. Boom,
Yeah.
scores the next 3 points. And now it's like every time he's about to fight or whatever, he sees Tori, and now the exact opposite happens because he's got,
I,
things on his mind.
I will say like there was that aspect that you're referring to, it really pissed me off this second batch especially. It it took me out of the immersion. It felt like they were insulting the audience's intelligence in a way,
Hmm.
because there are certain aspects where they just kept beating it over your head over and over again, whether it's like Robbie staring at Tori
Hmm.
or Tori staring at Robbie and then just being distracted, or like when Johnny is in the airplane just having that conflict with that asshole in first class, or
Yeah.
Miguel having to say no to him 3, 4 times. It's like, okay, we get it after one, maybe two, but you beat those plot point. I mean, you beat those things into our heads like 4 times each for each one of those people,
Hmm.
and it's like it felt like they were insulting. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm. Okay.
and it's like, man, you already don't have enough time for all these other characters, yet you choose to run these things back
Hmm.
3, 4 times, maybe more,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, how many times do you need to see Robbie engaged in a fight and then all of a sudden lose, like get distracted because he sees Dory in the background?
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. Because after a few times we're like, okay, we get it. Like, yeah, like,
Especially when he's motivated to like want to be the best because he has nothing going on in his life, and so he's really going to get clouded, by this over and over and over again.
hmm
So
speaking of the plane, so I love the stuff with Johnny and Miguel, like the second part of the plane ride when like
yeah,
Miguel goes to the front, but I feel like almost every season there's something that Johnny does where I like roll my eyes so hard that I'm like looking behind me is when he takes the lady's hat, he sneak up to the front.
that's funny there.
Like
Yeah,
it's funny, but
yeah,
honestly, it's that thing where I just for a hot second I think of the real world. Like, dude, that hat sticks out so much. That's the idea, right?
yeah.
Like there was a lady wearing this hat, and it's gonna draw attention, even though he's trying to be discreet. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't love that,
Okay,
but you know.
but you said you love the end where it's Robbie. I mean, when it's Miguel and Johnny like
Absolutely.
interacting, and
Hmm.
I think that's the heart of the show. That's like the base of the show, and that's been relegated to like, I don't know, third fiddle. It felt like
Yeah.
that was a side quest in the show, not the foundation of the second batch.
Hmm.
The relationship between Johnny and Miguel like has not been a focal point, and
Kind of anchors the show,
yeah.
you know.
And the last time it was when they went to Mexico, and then once they returned from Mexico, which was the beginning of the season, it just kind of drifted away. It felt like.
Would you have preferred that the relationship continued, at least the focus of the relationship with Miguel and Robbie would continue more after the resolve with Johnny and Robbie in season 5? Like, okay, Robbie's accepted him as his dad now, and they're good,
Yeah.
and we just leave it at that, and then now we continue like the mentorship with Johnny and Miguel, slash father son kind of deal.
I
Because now, because doesn't it seem a little bit more like it's now kind of like pairing Johnny and Robbie a little bit more because they have made amends, or do you think it's still kind of even between Johnny and Miguel and Robbie? You kind of understand the
in
question?
like from the audience perspective, it feels like Miguel's a little tighter to Johnny than
Hmm.
Robbie for me.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of Robbie's scenes don't necessarily rely on Johnny at all to like further him, right?
I kind of like Johnny and Robbie more in season 5 too. That was a
Uh-huh.
lot of fun, especially like their road trips and stuff.
Yeah,
Like road trips. They went on one
yeah.
to Mexico, but yeah,
That's more because it's more unfamiliar, like you don't really get them on operating on good terms all that often. So
and I think that's why I like part 2 a lot. And I don't think there's gonna be I don't think it's gonna be divisive where people are gonna be like, oh no, part 1 was so much better
yeah,
because there was a lot of criticisms and like how everybody's fighting and it's like what the hell is going on? They're about to go fight in this world tournament, and here they're all bickering and stuff, but that was by design.
uh-huh.
And you kind of go into part 2, and you do have a lot of those things bleed over where they start to get resolved. The binary brothers,
Hmm.
finally make amends, and very confusing with the stuff about Dimitri and Yasmin. Maybe this is I'm not sure. I'm not sure why that happened, you know? Was it just to add conflict to the stuff that was going on between Hawk and Eli?
Hmm.
But because what it sounds like, didn't Dimitri say like she broke up with me, because she saw him dance with another girl,
Yeah.
so it's like, so why did that happen? I don't know. I'm questioning a lot of things again because like,
Yeah, it did, like I get what is going on, but did it really need to happen?
right. Yeah.
Like what does that matter?
See, so some of these things, like these little details, they stick out a little bit more. Kind of like what you were saying about uh not the little things that they choose to focus on versus not giving us enough Quan or
Yeah.
because they set up, these are the guys to look out for kind of thing. Um, just because like the 5 episodes now, it's got me just kind of wondering how's it gonna end, because I hope that it does not end with like the Sekai Tekai, victory, like in early on in that last episode, or I would hope it's not going to be like a freeze frame of like Johnny Daniel
I doubt
like
it.
Miyagi. Yeah,
No.
I don't think it's going to be that, but again, like maybe we don't even need a wedding. That's the thing that's just going to be implied, and
Yeah.
then like, hey, we can all kind of do our fan fiction thing and be like, yeah, everybody was there and it was a good time, and maybe there was a fight over the last piece of cake.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just like, what else could happen in these next 5 episodes? That we're getting things that where we're like, oh, was this necessary? Is this gonna lead to something? Because it's making me think about it. I'm not sure if I need to or if I should be. So now I'm like, oh, what do I need to pay attention to? See, batch two, second batch, so much was going on.
Hmm.
And if you want to reference something, it's at this point, like, I don't really have the titles memorized. I think Snakes on a Plane was episode, I don't even remember now. Snakes on a Plane was one of the titles. You Jane Doe, that was the finale.
Mm.
In which I almost feel like, oh, that you're is that a little too, like, hey, focus on the knife, like this is gonna be a big deal, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if you knew that was the name of the episode going into episode 10.
I didn't.
Yeah, so it was called that. So for me, when I saw that title, I was like, it's called the knife, why is it named after the knife? Like,
Mm.
is that gonna be a big thing? Because you can still know that and not know what the hell's gonna happen,
Yeah.
but I feel, because it was titled that, now I'm thinking there's a reason they used that, and so I'm paying like more specific attention to that detail. um I don't know, just
I think yeah, I think episode 1 and episode 2, we got a lot of Quan, giving bad looks, just messing with the others, giving
uh
good one-liners, right?
he was still has some stuff in three,
Uh-huh.
or it's episode 8, because episode 8 is also where the bar stuff.
Okay.
No, that might be it might be 7. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. They
Yeah,
wrote the
I think it's 7.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
might you might be right.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. No, because Axel and Sam, they were on the beach. Wasn't that episode 8? Maybe that was 7. See, now I'm kind of forgetting. While you're looking that up, some other things that I kind of wrote down, like in the first couple episodes. I think they both came from the first episode, and I'll lump in something else too, but we'll talk about it later. We got Johnny and Daniel sharing a room, and there's a scene where Johnny comes out like in a bathrobe, so a little something for the fans there. I like that. And then there's another point where Robbie comes out wearing just a towel, and he's all like ripped, you
Yeah.
know. But also Terry Silver, in the bathtub, and
Uh-huh.
just like he was in part three, or yeah, in part three.
Um, I I thought it was there was a scene in this in what is it? So 7 where Amanda is talking to Daniel and then Daniel kind of just doesn't even listen to her and I thought that was kind of interesting how
Oh,
throughout his whole all these shows and the movie the only person he's really ever listened to in life is Miyagi, really.
right.
And I guess that kind of makes this whole side plot with Miyagi and the Sakai Taikai kind of more interesting that like maybe he shouldn't have put all of his eggs in one basket, just putting all of his faith into one person, and ignoring maybe his wife and stuff. I would rather them
Do
play
you
into that too
would
more.
you understand his obsession with Miyagi's legacy and the way he perceives him is because he looks at him more as like a father figure than a
I
mentor?
mean, he kind of more romanticizes the guy, but I feel like in real life, if you have a really successful car business, you have a really like awesome family, a loving wife and everything, you can't be getting away with saying no to your wife all like for what 5, 6 seasons now, for 6 seasons,
Yeah,
not listening to her on so many things and saying
yeah,
no, like, hey, karate's gonna be done when this happens, and then you find another excuse to keep karate going over and over again.
right, right.
Because they hinted that in earlier seasons how it's like destroying their business or destroying their family, and like now they kind of forgot about it. And it's like I feel like someone like Amanda probably wouldn't let it get this far before she starts threatening, you know, uh, divorce or something like that,
Oh, like what
separation, right?
Johnny predicted,
Yeah,
oh, you're finally leaving him.
yeah,
Um, I think the conversation you're talking about, that's when he was on his way to meet like Master Serrano or
I
whatever.
believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think about that sequence where he gets kidnapped and put in a dog cage? Because like that's setting up for we think it's Kreese.
Yeah.
Dennis shows up and I didn't say anything because I wanted to see if you would comment, be like, was he? Are we supposed to know who this guy is? Like you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So for me, as covering this. Big fan of the movies, but I know who Christopher Ford is, who plays Dennis.
Uh-huh.
You know,
I had no idea till you
yeah,
told me. So,
yeah. So friend of the podcast, and I can call him my friend. We've met in person and stuff. But shout out to Pialani who put us in touch.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah. So they're friends. But I saw and I was like, hell yeah, like so I knew who it was, and so I was just kind of waiting for a moment to kind of. I guess I was gonna wait for the reveal when Daniel finds out that he knew who this guy was.
Uh,
As the audience is also finding out if you already didn't recognize, the actor.
I was fine with it. I thought it drug on a little bit too long for my liking, but I like how they pay it off later.
With thinking that it was Kreese and it was
Crease
actually
and it,
Silver.
yeah, like I
Yeah,
like that part more than just this whole side quest aspect because I was like, wait a minute, there's this huge tournament that they flew all the way here for, and Daniel's putting his own personal, I don't know, he's putting this desire to uncover Miyagi ahead of his team. Like he's not there on a quest to like learn about Miyagi.
right,
Like his priority as a sensei, as a father, or whoever, should be about the kids and about the
right.
team, and he's losing sight of that to go off on a side quest. That's pretty selfish,
It is,
you
and
know?
yeah, I feel we've all done that, right? Like been selfish where a family trip, for example, you're
Yeah,
somewhere and you're like, damn, I am so close to this thing.
yeah.
I need a moment. I've done that, a few times, but I don't do the Daniel thing. I'll talk to my wife, be like,
Sure,
can I go to Sony for a few hours during our Disney trip to go,
exactly.
so like, I talk about it, yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't just like disappear, without people not knowing where I'm going.
No,
Um,
I can't figure out what it was anymore, but I thought it was a cool contrast because Robbie typically takes after Daniel a little more than he does
his dad?
Johnny. Yeah,
Hmm.
at least, at various points in the season or over the show. And I just thought it was interesting how both of those people kind of put themselves and their side quests ahead of the team, and they get called out for it, right? Like, because Miguel calls out Robbie for, not being the best leader.
I don't know if you put any thought into this, because we don't see Master Serrano, and Gunther is the one who got Daniel the contact info, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because he may know of Master Serrano, but did he get the contact from Gunther, or did he get it from somewhere else where Terry Silver could have given him that, put him in that place where it's sketchy to be kidnapped, right? Because they knew where he was going. So how did Terry Silver know?
That never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, I'm
So,
gonna have to go back
yeah,
and check that out. See, this is the thing, man. It's just like when I binged it the first time, after the end of it, I was like, how the hell am I gonna take my notes, man? Like it's just moving, like it's firing on all cylinders. Like everything is going on.
yeah.
There's it. Um, I'm not trying to say this as a criticism, but it almost doesn't give you a chance to breathe because something is always going on.
Yeah.
We got this scene with somebody else, and then boom, we cut to like this is also going on with these characters, and so I'm just like, oh man, like it's overwhelming, and it's very easy to kind of get lost in the details. And so I just thought of that just now and be like, where's Master Serrano?
Mm.
Is he gonna come back in part three? Because Gunther brought him up, so that's something I'm gonna have to really keep an eye out on.
I remember notating that when Daniel finally comes back at the end of the episode, his conversation with Samantha just
Mm.
didn't seem right. I'm having trouble figuring out what that was, but you
What,
know,
what he was saying, or just
yeah.
just in
I
general.
mean, like, I feel like that didn't really jive with she just kind of just like forgave her dad, I think, and didn't really.
Well, I think first off, it's your dad, and I think right then and there was probably not the time to talk.
Yeah.
And so, if there's anything that he wants to tell her that she feels that he's probably gonna tell her later, because remember when she saw him, right? Like
He
he
was
was,
more glad that he was alive.
yeah, but he was roughing up Kreese.
Mm.
He has
That's
Kreese.
right, against the
Yeah,
wall.
he has
Yeah.
him up against the wall, and Daniel actually gets the second F bomb. Hawk getting the first one.
Mm.
Um, what does he say? It's like it does he say don't fuck with me or like it was something like that. But
Some along the
yeah,
lines,
it
right?
was
Yeah.
something like that. And then that's when Sam's like, Dad,
Yeah.
and she's like, where you been? And so he says that he like went to lunch, got in the cab, and then he was like, oh, don't worry about it. So clearly she knows there's more to it that he's just not going to say right now. Keisha's also right there,
Yeah.
and I'm sure she understands that
But
and kind of read the room.
but she's usually more of like like self-centered character, right? Like, and her after her interaction with Johnny and being upset with how he was managing the dojo or
Oh
managing
yeah.
the team,
Hmm.
like I would have thought that that would have been her priority, like be upset with Dad because you left Johnny in charge. Like I would have thought
I
that that
see.
would seem a little more authentic. But so I remember this episode where it just seems like Daniel goes off on a side quest, puts himself first. Robbie had something similar where he kind of put himself first, but then immediately when Johnny finds out that Carmen was, sick
Hmm.
or there might be having health complications, like he doesn't even care.
Drops
He
everything. Yeah.
drops everything for his family and then grabs Miguel too.
Yeah.
So I think that just kind of shows like they're a little different.
Yeah. He's the real Karate Kid. Is that what you want to say?
Yeah,
You want to get into that debate?
he's the real Karate Kid.
Right, right.
He's my Karate Kid. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about that in that part one recap, right? We talked about like Johnny's having like these little wins and maturing, but then there were some things where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, he's still got some things to learn. But actually, not the best segue, but to kind of jump to that last episode, I love their that little fight that they had on the beach where they're going back and forth, and
Yeah, that was
oh
really good.
man,
That was good. That
I,
was so
I
good.
loved it, and oh man, I know people are going to be quoting these lines because there's a lot of like Daniel naysayers out there, and they're just going to be like, I'm kind of forgetting the quote, but Johnny says something along the lines of, I've called you pussy 1,000 times, you've never done anything,
Yeah.
just like man, it's so true.
When they interact, like dude, the chemistry between those two are fantastic every time.
They're great.
I get disappointed sometimes where they like how the writing is, where it's like, hey, they made up, and then they find some little excuse for them to break them up again, to be at odds, and then they reconcile, and then they break up, and it's like eh, I don't know, it just feels like when two people have gone through that much, and if they're really genuine about reconciling, those little things would be not that pivotal in breaking them up again.
Mm,
Does that
mm.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just you're saying that like other things now. You're kind of opening up other things now, and
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
No, 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 no. It's,
Okay.
it's it's not a bad thing. That's
Yeah.
that's that's how things be sometimes.
Yeah.
Another thing I wrote in terms of Johnny, not necessarily a win, but it shows like a growth in his character. How he was when the scene where he's in the bathrobe, right, and he's on the phone with like customer service, and if you listen to him speak Spanish, like I think he had trouble with like one word, like he was able to kind of
Mhm.
get the gist of what he wanted to say out, and I think. There's a line where Johnny says like, "Did you just call me a douche?" I think is what he says,
Uh,
and so you think about that, it's like, oh, Johnny probably well maybe not exactly understood everything the guy was saying, but picked up on something that sounds like douche,
yeah, yeah.
So I kind of like that he's able to kind of just pick up,
That's a
yeah,
fun. That's a fun running gag throughout the whole show, right? Like how he he fails with, verbiage
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
woke language or
Right.
and this like he kept on criticizing Louis Tan's character. I can't remember his name, but
Wolf, Sensei Wolf.
Sensei Wolf
Yeah.
about pronunciation of Barcelona or with a T.
Barcelona.
Yeah, yeah, like that was hilarious. So
Um, I feel that there was something I was about to add on. It was okay. So back to the sponsorship real quick. I thought, let's see, I think first we see Daniel talking to kind of put us like in the scene, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, at some point we cut to Johnny, and I just love where he's just like doing nunchucks.
oh yeah, yeah.
I thought it was so funny
About
because
not needing a dagger.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, Kreese walks in, and then they have like a pissing contest, basically. Trying to get this guy in on it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, who do you think has the
That scene was good
the
too, man.
It was funny. It was
Yeah,
really funny. But I just love the nonchalant cut to Johnny. Like, it's not him picking up the nunchucks. He's already like in motion.
yeah.
So I thought that was great. But there was a point. Maybe you remember better than me, but I feel it was in the sponsorship scene where Johnny is talking to somebody and he snaps in and gets really professional with it and kind of says like all the right things. Does that
Well, say that again.
where how I think it might have been sometime after maybe meeting Sensei Wolf,
Okay.
right? And like Sensei Wolf steals like the steak or takes like the last two pieces,
Yeah.
and then he has that interaction where Daniel thinks that Wolf could be a sponsor, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think sometime after that, Johnny's talking to somebody else, but he's very professional. Like he's just kind of zeroed in, like, we're Miyagi Do, this is who we are, this is what we
Oh,
do.
that's right. Yeah, he
You
was
know,
talking to like one of the women, I think. Was it one of the women?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
again, so many things are happening, right?
there's just
But
so much.
but there, yeah, there is a point where you're like, he can do it. He
Yeah.
can speak to somebody professionally and whatever. So like he's able to kind of separate, like, or at least compartmentalize, like this is that, this is karate related, this is sponsorship or something. But let, let's let's talk about Wolf and Iron Dragons. Let's just
Okay.
talk about Iron Dragons. What did you think of Louis Tan's introduction?
Uh, I like the slow reveal.
Yeah.
Like you said, they thought he was a sponsor, and then he was all of a sudden, a sensei, right?
And you knew he was in it, right? Going in.
Oh, I did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
What
yeah.
did you know?
About him or
Yeah.
his character. I mean,
Hmm.
I didn't know what role he was
Okay.
having.
So you didn't know he was going to be a sensei.
No, my
Okay.
only familiar with him was just Mortal Kombat, I guess. So,
Okay. Okay.
so I figured he's gonna have a big role just based off that, right? So,
That's what I would have thought
yeah,
too. Even when I heard about his involvement, I had wondered, like, oh, okay, I wonder if he's going to be a sensei or something.
yeah.
Um, But one thing to kind of note that you went in blind, right? You didn't see the trailer. You
Nope.
didn't see first looks and
Any
images or anything.
promotions or anything
Yeah.
like that.
So
Yeah.
that was kind of cool that you went in
The
not
only,
knowing what Louis Tan is, and you see
yeah,
him in a suit, and you're just like, oh, he's somebody, I
yeah.
guess.
I mean, the only things I remember from this upcoming batch was knowing that Reina
Hmm.
was gonna be in the show and Lewis was gonna be in the show, and
Right.
outside of that, I didn't really know anything.
The other Lewis is Patrick Lewis, who plays Axel.
Okay,
Isn't that
okay,
kind of funny?
okay,
Yeah. So you
okay.
got two Lewis. One
All right.
Patrick Lewis is Luwis, unique spelling there.
Okay.
Um, so did you get the sense? What did you think of Axel?
They don't really show him all that much. I mean, I mean, I guess, I mean, they don't have to have him talk or anything, but, uh, I don't know. The only two scenes that are really like, I mean, the only two moments that are really pivotal for him is, him getting, training with,
Wolf.
Wolf
Hmm.
and,
Where he's getting hit.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
like, and he's getting pushed a little too hard and, he's getting hit. And then his interaction with Samantha and she's explaining to him, or he's explaining to her, his feelings on that,
Hmm.
about his training and wanting to win and all that. And I think with that, I just kind of felt like, oh, are they trying to like do some kind of like romantic angle with them? And then I was like, oh shit. And they ended up doing that. And I just didn't really think that felt really earned for
Hmm.
both characters.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't really understand why someone that has dedicated himself to winning and sacrificing all that for winning would just literally maybe throw that away for a girl. That you know what I mean? Like
Sure. Sure.
that quickly too, you know?
Yeah. I think I think these two specifically, Zara and Axel. I think they are. maybe written kind of like the Sensei Kim character
Yeah,
in season five.
very
Yeah, in
one-dimensional.
season five, like they're pretty much this. Maybe some gray areas, but they're this,
Yeah,
right? Sensei Kim, she's quote unquote bad guy, right? Like we're
yeah,
not really supposed to be rooting for her,
yeah.
but then they humanize her a little bit more here in
With that
this.
kissing scene.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the stuff with Chosen. And just to add to that, the aftermath of that, I don't know if that's the word I would use, but I just love how were they having coffee or something like the next morning, or I don't I mean it was like hours later, but like since Kim's got like sand in her
oh,
hair
that's
and
right. You
stuff.
pointed that out too. I didn't even notice that. I was like, huh. Like I just noticed messy hair. I figured they hooked up, but I didn't realize it was like necessarily sand. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no, because I
yeah,
think at one point she maybe picks some out of her hair or brushes some sand off, and because I remember like maybe the second time I had seen it, I noticed it at that time. I was like, oh shit, she's got sand on her still.
yeah.
So
Um,
so we can I'll leave it at that.
Going back to the Axel thing, as he was interacting with Samantha, I was like, as it was transpiring, I wrote down, is Samantha trying to lead this guy on? I mean, like, I guess the show portrays it as she wasn't, but she has led both Miguel and Robbie on at various times throughout the earlier seasons too. So, so it's like it seems like this is history repeating itself again, where he might be leading someone on or just being friendly herself,
Right.
and then that's causing a conflict with the guys. And I was like,
It is, and
it's a little played out, like
I
you don't need to do that.
I can see that, but the difference with Robbie, I don't know if this was planned out that far in advance, but with Robbie, I think that was like written for conflict, the love triangle kind of
Correct.
thing. This one, I think it's like, well, it's Sam being Sam, but not in a bad way. Like she's just a nice person.
Now, yeah, this
Yeah,
time she
but
was.
but
Yeah,
even with Robbie, she wasn't leading him. She didn't take it as flirting. Robbie did. He misunderstood. So it's her doing the same thing, but at least this time she acknowledges what's going on.
yeah,
Like Robbie wasn't putting on the moves like how Axel was trying to lean in for a kiss, but at least this time she's like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry." Like she is letting him know right now. I'm
yeah,
sorry. This like I'm taken. I have a boyfriend. Whereas before, like Miguel didn't really come up, and so Robbie didn't know that she had a boyfriend, and it all had to happen on the beach.
yeah,
Them kind of finding out all about that stuff. And so like if she had said anything before, that stuff probably could have been prevented, and Miguel would have fallen off the cliff, maybe not a cliff, but the second story of the school. But so now I think it's like a little maturation on Sam as well. It's like, well, she learned what happened with Robbie.
yeah.
This guy,
That's a good
oh
way of looking at it.
damn, this is happening again. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I have a boyfriend. Yeah, so I think that's what that is.
yeah.
You know,
I thought that was weird too. Like in those instances, like both characters are by themselves, not around their team. Like
she
when
excused herself. She wanted to get some air because
sure.
I think what had happened was maybe she was with Robbie, and I think the Cobras walked in.
Hmm.
I think that's when the Cobras walked in, and it's so funny because we'll get to it where the drunk Cobra scene
Hmm.
that was pretty funny. But yeah, so she excuses herself. It's maybe not like it's one of those things like the story's got to work. At least like this is where we're going, and maybe this is like the best way. In my opinion, I don't think anybody should ever be left alone in a
In a foreign
foreign
country.
country.
That's right. That's how.
You should have the buddy system,
Yeah.
right? Go
Or
with a buddy.
or a mentor or a parent or someone with you.
Tori would also do that.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be around the team, but she's also grieving, and
Yeah.
everyone grieves differently. I know for me, sometimes when I'm upset or frustrated or whatever, I want to be left alone.
Sure.
I don't want anybody to talk to me. I don't answer, and I feel like a lot of people can be that way. And so, like in the show, I think that's what some of these characters just do. They just go out and be alone. Daniel did it on the beach. Oh, Daniel does it a lot,
Yeah.
but in season two, he goes out for a walk on the beach, and that's where he sees like the guy who he thought reminded him of Miyagi.
But yeah, I understand that for like the sake of moving the story,
Sure.
but like you just never see any team together at all in these first episodes. Really,
Hmm.
like they're all in like I get that they're trying to set up relationships or conflict between people, but like you watch the movies, you watch like the first few seasons, and you see more groups. Like we're in the Miyagi-Dos, we're like together, or Kyler and his
Yeah.
band of thugs, we're all together, like so it just feels weird that you're saying like, yeah, they're in a foreign country, like they they're still minors, right? Like
Yeah. Yes.
are they haven't graduated high school
No,
yet?
they're not.
They're because they're preparing to go to
Right, because they're
college.
seniors. They're
Yeah.
seniors, and Kyler's already graduated.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, that's kind of weird. They're all just doing alone stuff. And then, even down to like going to a bar, drinking in a bar. Like I get underage drinking, but feels weird to,
The age is probably different. I'm
it
sure.
is
Yeah,
different in Europe,
yeah, yeah.
but it just feels a little bit weird, as an
It,
American watching that,
well, it was weird hearing Robbie like order drinks. Like
Yeah.
how do you was it rum and coke?
I just know when I was a kid going to my first bar, I am not ordering like a rum and Coke. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like,
Like how do you already know that's what you
yeah,
like?
exactly. Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know, give me a beer.
Yeah. But then again, he was kind of a delinquent, so maybe he would drink a rum Coke.
Yeah. Um, hmm. Let's see here.
Um, but yeah.
Oh, Zara. Well, you had some comments about Zara's character.
Yeah, I was so pumped for Reina. I remember finding her out on Instagram years before, and
Mhm.
then I think you kind of gave me the spoiler when I mentioned her to you, and you were like, "Oh, I saw her on set," and I was like, "Oh, damn!" I was so pumped for that. And then I don't know, I expected a little more. She seemed very one-dimensional, just more focused on her social media following. I thought that was just kind of disappointing.
Yeah,
I was kind of I know what she's capable of, like physicality wise. She's like what a 12-time or 13-time world champ, and then
right. Continue talking
yeah,
quickly,
and
real quick.
I don't know. It was kind of disappointing that they didn't really get to show off her abilities to the full extent. So um, it will, yeah. So and I don't know. I was expecting her to wow me with her physicality, and didn't really get that. And I know she's definitely capable of it,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering if it was maybe like if she showed off her full abilities, it would probably overshadow some of the other female cast members that probably can't keep up with her physicality, and that was kind of my take on that, I guess. Yeah. If she portrays herself as like this elite fighter, that can do all these things, maybe the actresses from the main cast probably can't look imposing enough to maybe overcome that, right?
I don't know. I haven't really processed like the casting of her because I know that she has done some work before.
Yeah.
One of which she was in this movie called The Underdog Kids. I think I might be messing up that title, but it was maybe written and directed, or Simon Ree,
Hmm.
the Ree brothers,
Hmm.
Simon and Philip Ree,
Hmm.
best of the best. Simon Ree stars in this film, and I don't remember if he wrote or directed, but anyway, she is one of the underdog kids,
Hmm.
and I think the Ree brothers also train with some of the cast members, so I don't know if there's a little like, hey, I also know this, badass female student, or fighter, kind of thing. And but I don't know if underwhelmed. I don't think I was underwhelmed, but I was a little surprised how little of like the badassery we didn't really get
Yeah.
with that casting. Um, Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
texting here real quick.
So yeah, so I was really focused on just maybe seeing more acrobatics and elite kicks or whatever from just all the people at the whole Sakai Takai. And what struck me, I was kind of odd was it seems like the choreography or like how the camera work when they are fighting seems very different from Karate Kid movies or like the early seasons of Cobra Kai,
Hmm.
where it just seemed like the camera was just way more tight on the actors. You don't really, you don't, it's not like pulled out and you don't really see, the flow of the fighting going on. Like, you know what I
The
mean?
big picture of
The
it,
big
right?
picture of
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Like,
it's a little bit more up close and intimate and personal.
yeah.
I wonder,
And,
yeah.
and the choreography isn't as memorable. Like, I still think back to the school fight, how
Hmm.
cool it was. It was just one camera, one take, and then they were going on for a
Oh
couple of
yeah, the
minutes.
oneer. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, stuff like that was cool. Like you're like, all right, well, this is Sakai Takai. Maybe they'll pull some cool stuff like that out. And you don't really get that. You get a lot of team fighting that didn't really make sense, where they had all six players fighting. Uh,
You really hated the tag
I
thing.
hated the tag, and they kept on bringing the tag
Okay,
stuff in and out over and over and over
so
again.
so I thought about this while you were
Yeah,
mentioning that because you were heavily criticizing the, the
yeah,
the tagging event. I do wonder if that was uh incorporated or made up or whatever because of the way it ended. the tagging of it when it started ramping up towards the end, I thought was actually pretty cool. Like I think it started off slow and
Yeah.
it was kind of frustrating, and you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But then when I think it was Yoon that was in the middle, and everyone was like, "No, get him tired out,"
That,
and
that was the
so
only
yeah,
aspect that looked cool. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's what that was for, like to do that, and I thought that execution was actually pretty cool.
That one was the best part of
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
but I think the setup maybe could frustrate people as it did you.
Or like, when they did the whole group fighting where it was like dojo on dojo, and it's like, oh, cool, like these guys should be really good at it. They've already done the protect the egg back in like
Right.
and it's
And
like they didn't even do that
they
well.
even called out to it too, like
Yeah.
protect the egg.
And it's like, all right, they've already demonstrated, they've practiced it, and it's like, all right, why are you guys not so good at it anymore? Like,
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I wonder, how I keep referencing part two, Karate
yeah,
Kid 2? What if that's the Daniel doing the crane kick on Chosen? It ain't gonna work here, buddy. Like, you're in a different country.
yeah,
Chosen knows that move too. This protect the egg shit don't work in Barcelona, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
It works. You guys did it one time, and it worked effectively with the Terry Silver's dojo brawl,
yeah.
right? And now you gotta try to do it again. It's not always gonna work.
So yeah, and so speaking to that, like the winners of that little drill or that competition or that round was the Iron Dragons, and
Mm.
then what did they do? They protected the egg with the four goons in front, and then they're like the Axel just waves them all off, right? And it
Yeah,
was just it was Zara and Axel, and then they just beat them up straight up one on one, like dispatched them with ease, didn't
right.
they? So
Yeah. So I think Watch Party, he had some comments about that sequence because that was a clip that was shared. Did we talk about that clip? I kind of yeah, I think we did kind of break down that clip, and
yeah,
and he was talking about how anything I say I'd be making up, but he did comment on that. It's like, wait, why did those four get up and leave, exposing the two kind of
it
deal?
was a confidence thing.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was. It's also like 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 a boss move as
yeah,
well, right?
exactly.
And so we had no context before that clip, and all they did was
Oh, because
release that
that clip
clip.
was on a trailer or
No,
independent.
it was an exclusive clip from Entertainment Weekly,
Oh, okay.
and it literally started right before Tori tells Quan and Yoon, you guys get the big guy. I'll take the girl.
Yeah.
And that's right when it started, and it ends when we see Sensei Wolf, because that's the way that episode ends. So
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the ending of an episode either. So I do wonder if because remember I believe they were also part of the four in that group to be fighting right
Yes,
all at
they
once,
were. Yeah.
and because you were like, what, we don't even see the other dojos, but they were just focusing on Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
and you can kind of see some Iron Dragon folks in the back, and so I wonder, like, if we were to understand that like these guys didn't even get a hit scored on them,
Yeah.
I wonder if like this is them kind of like we've been around, okay,
Yeah.
we've seen things, and because of how we did, we know that we don't need these four because our two captains could take on the rest of you guys by
I,
themselves.
I will say then if that's you're right because there was one cutaway where you do see like a third or fourth dojo, but for the most part you don't see them.
You don't see, yeah.
And it's like, well, then that's a flaw of that set. Like when they, cheapened out on that set and made it so,
Mm.
not dramatic. Had they got a cool set that was like a big warehouse or something like that, they could have pulled back and showed like absolute chaos of all the dojos fighting
Mm.
together, and you would have saw like 20 something people or 30
Uh,
some people. Like,
I don't know if I agree with that because
no,
I feel, with blocking and staging things, I
yeah.
feel you could probably still accomplish that.
Uh,
I would love to.
it just would have looked more chaotic just seeing like all these people go at it
Right.
together,
Yeah, just because when you're focused in and almost up front and kind of in the thick of it with
Yeah.
the fighters, you're not really getting the chaos feel,
The
right?
peripheral, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, that's kind of interesting.
And then, so before you said that public scene that ET played, and Tori's talking about, hey, I'll take the girl, you
EW.
take the
Yeah.
EW,
Yeah. Yeah.
EW, I'm sorry. They, I want to say like one of the Cobras or both the Cobras. I don't know if it was Quan or Yoon. I think it was probably Quan because he gets all the speaking roles, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's
they were criticizing Tori for breaking
yeah.
the plan
Hmm.
instead of protecting the egg, or she just went off on her own, and
Okay.
because of that bad mistake, they were down from six players down to three,
Yeah.
and then they're going against Iron Dragons with 3 on 6.
Um.
So I thought they were gonna maybe address that later, and they never really did. Question
Oh.
her leadership, question her tactics, or
Well, Quan continues to question,
Yeah, but
her thing. But
in a way, but
yeah, but also it was Kim. Was it Kim? Yeah, at some point,
they could have had Kim bring it
well,
up
no,
again.
no, like somebody tells Tori, no, she tells somebody like they're not even listening to me, and they're like, well, lead, just just do it, and or whatever. I wonder if it was that scene.
Hmm.
Um, oh man, there was another thing I was gonna say just a little bit ago. Um, the dragons. We talked about Zara as the influencer. Um, one of the things that I like, and uh, it came in during the aquarium field trip. It's when they were taking like the group photos or whatever, and then at some point you see like some of the fighters like start arguing. One of the international fighters, and that's one of those like little details.
Was that
How
the scene with the kicking, the chalk on the
it
kicking?
it happened before that,
Oh, okay.
but it's part of the same sequence, because this is when they're taking like the big old group photo with people. At one point we see Axel, and then the photographers telling him to smile.
Mm, mm,
And it's also right before Tori and Sam kind of walk off, or I think Tori walks off first.
okay.
But damn it, what was my point? Oh yeah, the international fighters, they were arguing. We've been talking about like some of the things that they show us, how minute it may be, and it's just like, oh, why focus on that? This is one of those details. I'm like, yeah, some of these fighters, this isn't their first Sekai, and so they probably still have bad blood from like previous competitions, and so seeing that little argument just adds to like, oh,
Mm,
these guys have been here too. Just a little layer that I kind of noticed and that I kind of appreciated. Um, it, on that note, and I mentioned this to you, and so I don't know if you have an opinion since yesterday, and kind of how you feel about it. But when this is the last episode, when Gunther announces that, hey, one of the dojos cheated, from the Soviet, the Russian team, like that thing is that's Tiger Strike, I believe
okay.
is who it was.
Good.
They found out that four of their fighters had tested positive for P
Form type drugs, right?
PED, right?
PD,
Okay,
yeah.
so I feel the dynamic between Gunther and that sensei, Ivanov,
Okay.
I forget his name, but I feel there's definitely some history there, and I don't know if it's something where are we supposed to get that maybe Gunther um, was a fighter, and maybe he was at some point in the Sekai Tekai, or was it like he was commissioner, and this guy's dojo always seems to it's always something with this guy,
Yeah.
right? And did you have any thoughts on that, or that just didn't
When
really?
I watched it, it just made me think of Olympics and how, I don't know, over the course of my life, the Russians or, people from that
There's just certain
bloc,
countries that just always clash.
yeah, or no, not just class, but
Oh,
get caught with PEDs or,
oh, okay.
Russians or Soviets or and PEDs seem to like be brought up quite a bit in movies over time, right? Like,
Yeah,
isn't that, I mean, because one of the characters' name is Draga or
Draga. Yeah.
Draga, and then
Well,
you
matter
got
of
the
fact,
Draga.
part of the Tiger Strike.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then there's this Drago, and then with Dolph Lundgren's character, I
Hmm.
think like he was taking performance enhancing drugs in Rocky.
Yeah, he definitely got injected with something.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I thought it was a callback to that.
Okay.
Um,
Because the reason I think about their relationship is because of what happens right before that's what causes the breakout brawl
yeah,
is that sensei showing up and fuck Gunther out of
out of
nowhere.
nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah, and so I get that guy's motivation. Like that's how much the Sekai Tekai means to him. That why how they want to win, and Gunther being like the very reason that they're not going to be able to participate.
yeah.
But also like not the greatest moment, but like I guess if they won't have a chance, nobody else should.
Mm.
So I kind of get that. It's yeah, kind of very interesting. Um, we talked about Axel and Wolf a little bit. I
I want to say like there's a lot with Quan and maybe two and three. I mean, I'm sorry. So it's seven and eight, right?
okay.
So we're talking about episode eight, I think, right now. We're delving into it, and he gets under Robbie's skin both verbally quite a few times. It gets under Robbie's skin physically, I think, in this episode, and every single time. I feel like he's crossed the line and Robbie doesn't respond appropriately. Like if you were to do that to someone would like fight back like with physical,
Right.
they would fight back physically. but Robbie just keeps on just threatening him and like, hey, blah blah blah, like
Just taking it.
just taking it,
Yeah.
really. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, he's not like being passive and being like bullied or anything, but he's it's like you better not do it again. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
just doesn't really feel. It feels like empty threats every time. And I felt like someone like Robbie definitely probably would have fought back or should have fought back, and it would have probably pumped up your team too to see
Hmm.
that. You know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
and encourage the team to like want to jump in.
I wonder if we're supposed to kind of just understand there's that the rule not to like mess with the. I mean,
Yeah.
we learned it from Axel, right? Like, well, and that might be specific to his dojo where he's not supposed to speak to competitors, but maybe there is some sort of rule, no fighting, when you guys aren't on the mat, kind of
Yeah.
thing with the other, because that could be a disqualification, maybe, tampering outside, where you guys are actually fighting when you shouldn't be.
Because Robbie's fighting someone else and then gets shoved out of bounds, and then that's when Quan throws a cheap shot at him, I believe.
There's definitely a part where I believe Kwon, it's one of those things that he tries to get one lick in
Yeah,
while nobody's watching. Like he
and
tries to do it,
so Robbie already got hit, and
yeah,
then he's not going to retaliate by hitting back at that
yeah.
point. Like that doesn't seem realistic, right?
No, but hey, weren't we kind of cheering on anytime like Kwon did something?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're like, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
do more of
yeah.
that. It's just like,
He
you know,
killed it in the little things that he had though. Like
he
his
did.
line, like every line wasn't wasted, every action wasn't wasted.
I think that's what a lot of fans love about their quote unquote villains,
Yeah,
like just let them be bad. Terry
yeah,
Silver, just let him be bad. Chosen, fine, he's a good guy, but at least we got like, some of that those colors back in um season 5. And with part 2 of season 6, we didn't get a whole lot of that, but I liked when he's out in town looking for the kids, with Sensei Kim, and then also he got to beat up some people in that brawl as well. So,
yeah.
so he got his moments there. Um,
I think this episode dealt a lot with the whole triangle between Anthony, Kenny, and Devin. I thought that was probably the best. That's probably like the best storyline within the second batch for me. It was everything was executed really well. They all had good moments. Speech was really well done. Like the motivations all felt authentic to
mhm.
everybody.
And just you said I think you said speech, but like the dialogue, right?
Dialogue, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
not speech.
but
Yeah,
yeah, but the dialogue, they said things that felt true to the character,
correct.
right? And from
Everything felt earned.
yeah, from their dynamic, and so I love that wrap up, and that's another one of my favorite moments, and I'm glad we didn't get like a musical cue because sometimes I feel like a certain musical cue may give me a different feel than what I thought I would have felt maybe without that cue, or maybe if I thought I was gonna hear something different, like for example, Chosen driving off in the electric scooter. I don't think there was any music played, and that's why I think I laughed because
Hmm.
he's like hunched over a little bit on the scooter, and it doesn't even take off that fast, right? So I think that's hilarious. Like Chosen, you probably could have just ran faster,
Yeah.
because Sissy Kim got there probably by a taxi. She asked
Mm.
the guy for a taxi, but it's when Amanda's in the car and she just looks over and Kenny
That was
Anthony
awesome.
was
That
already
was
fighting. Like, I
awesome.
just thought that felt real.
Yeah,
And as a parent, like, when you're waiting to pick up your kid from somewhere, like that's probably the thing you would least expect to see happen
yeah.
is to just look over and your kid is
I
fighting.
mean, I even loved Amanda taking charge and confronting Anthony about that and convincing him to apologize reluctantly, right?
Yeah.
But the only one thing I didn't really like, and it's a minor dislike, I didn't hate it, was Anthony's apologizing for real this time, like authentically, and then he gets cut off with Devin calling. And it
Yeah.
and it cheapened the apology, and I think it kind of cheapened it for everybody. Like I think they could have drawn that out a little more. That hey, you didn't need to do that. Let's wait till Kenny is in person in Barcelona, and that's way like that way Devin can address it with him in person.
Which
Then
he did.
yeah,
And I
that's
think,
why the apology didn't really need to come over the
right.
phone. I think
So I'm see, and I know you were saying like, oh, it must have been annoying, like watching this with me because
yeah,
it's almost like in a theater where I just want to be like, just quiet,
but
just
you
wait.
have to hold back.
No,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I like that because I already kind of know some of the things that you're gonna say, right? And you address them. It gives me a chance to have like processed out a little bit,
yeah.
and I do wonder if. First off, like I don't even want to like try to do the math of what the time difference is, does that match up from when, like Devin calls Kenny? I'm
Yeah.
not gonna think about it, but I think her calling him gives it makes Kenny believe Anthony that much sooner and gets him to
Sure.
Barcelona.
Yeah, but that's why it doesn't need to be done. Because if he just nails the apology,
Okay,
that'd be good
fair,
enough. You know
fair.
what I mean? Like, so it cheapened Anthony's apology, I felt like.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, I'll just say it's interesting. I'm not gonna disagree with you.
Because sometimes the show like wants like they hit you over the head with things over and over again. It feels like it questions your intelligence, and then other times they take the opposite approach, and it feels inconsistent. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes. I mean, I understand what you're saying for sure. Um, Speaking of phone calls, I love. Oh, we have never seen D- Devin get emotional.
Hmm.
And she talked about, she had a like in season 5, she had a moment with Tori, talks about her mom, passing away, and so we saw like a little bit of like, okay, well, Una can be sad, but we've never seen Una cry, and so like Devin, talking to Johnny, and she comes out to him about what she did with Kenny, and also how I love how he doesn't like bust her balls about it.
No,
You like,
his
yeah,
parenting was perfect there
yeah,
too, right?
yeah. It was great. Okay,
Left it up to her
I
to,
hear what you said, and this is what I'll say to you.
yeah.
And he's not going to shame her for that. You
There's so
know,
much maturation with Johnny
yeah,
too.
yeah, absolutely. And so I love seeing that moment with them, and and I think that inspires Johnny to not make the phone call, but what he says and how he says it to Daniel. Hey, the kids need you, and he looks around too, like, all right, well, hopefully nobody hears me say this, and I need you to, you know,
Well,
like,
well, I guess like that's what's cool with Johnny's character. Like when they say that you're emotionally invested or compromised or angry or happy, like you kind of make the wrong decision sometimes. So with that interaction with Devin, he's able to separate his emotions away because he's not involved in it. He gave her good advice,
mm,
and then as he's like listening, to himself speak, he's like, oh, maybe I should take my own advice too.
hmm
Right? Like,
yeah,
and that's great. Like that's what stoicism's about, and that's what a lot of martial arts is about, right? Is
hmm
is is, is being stoic. So. Um, I say, then we already talked about the Kim and Chozen fight scene build
yeah.
up and how great that was. It gave me a lot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith
Yeah.
vibes with Pitt and Jolie,
Oh, I bet. I
you know.
bet that was an inspiration.
Yeah, so, but yeah,
Oh, so here's something that happened probably in one of the middle episodes. But what do you think of that platform fight? That's something that we saw sequences of that in the trailer.
the narrow platform or the wide
Well, but
platform?
the big with the hovering one, basically, where you have to kick them off onto the pads.
Yeah, I want to say for visual appeal, I really wanted to see someone fall and then like, from like top down looking just to show like the impact. And it didn't really seem well shot.
They had some wide shots of it,
Uh-huh.
but then once it gets into like a bit of a montage, you start seeing like a lot more people more close in, just landing
Yeah,
like
but
on the
not a
pad.
fall.
Yeah, but not like
No one was scared of heights or anything. No one
yeah.
really seemed, like,
So we got one, and I think in the trailer they might have played it for slow mo, and I don't remember if it was slow mo in the actual episode. Yeah, I thought that was kind of visually cool. I remember seeing that. I go, what in the Tron? And
yeah.
then like I had to do a screenshot and share that like on X. I was just like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I remember when we saw the narrow platform and the wide platform. I don't have any martial arts like background or anything. I don't really know, but like for a narrative, I thought it would have been cool if they were on the narrow platform to have like the aggressor win. Like that'd be like when you want to be offensive.
Hmm.
But when you're going 2-on-2 on the wide platform, maybe you want to control the middle and play defense.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
but like it just didn't really feel like tactics were any different in either, to me at least, right?
Yeah. Man, I wonder what other ideas they had in terms of like team events,
Yeah. Because
So
don't you think that they fought pretty similar in both? So it's like, what's the difference between a wide platform and a narrow platform? Like,
I wonder if the narrow platform was more about like, even Amanda uses it, um, talks about it in one of the episodes where she says something to the effect of, if there's one thing I know about Mr. Miyagi, it's his karate or something like that.
hmm
Or no, if I know anything about Miyagi's karate, it's the word balance.
hmm
And so like I wonder if that's just the thing, like, oh well, we could do this thing where it's like a narrow platform and it's all about balancing.
yeah.
It could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure.
just figure it's harder to play defense on a narrow platform. You can't evade.
Right.
You can't really do as much. So that should be like the offense person wins, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I understand that. Yeah. It's like playing chicken.
Yeah.
You want to be offensive on that.
But that was when that whole the both those sequences or that sequence and another one, it's like that's when I kept on seeing all the tagging format stuff. It was kind of dumb. What's the point if you need to score three? Why tag someone out? Just stay in. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
All
Like
right.
they
If it's your best player and you could take them all,
yeah, because
well,
when they're point fighting, like each point is like less than 30 seconds. So are you gonna tell me these guys, world class athletes, are gonna tire out within 30 seconds
right.
now that it's a team
I
format?
know.
No, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know.
You know what I
You're
mean?
still upset.
Yeah. Yeah, that bothered me a lot.
Yeah.
So
The couple of hallway scenes that I want to bring up. The Robbie and Miguel in the hallway. That was a really good sequence about where Miguel is confronting him about the captain and basically saying like, it should have been me. If you can't get together, maybe I should be captain. Or
yeah, that was
that whole
cool.
dialogue
That was
that was
awesome.
really
That
good.
was awesome.
Again, Robbie in the hallway. This time walking out of Zara. No, yeah, Zara's room.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't really like that. I didn't really like that. I mean, I get where he's going because he was manipulated by Quan, right? And then
Yeah.
he also sees Tori killing it at that point in the tournament.
Hmm.
I don't know if I really need to see him hooking up with Zara, you know?
Yeah, it's especially if I don't know, did you feel did you
Felt just unnecessary.
the like Tori's reaction and any dialogue with Robbie in regards to that, was that earned, I guess?
I mean, because she never even really got mad at him for doing it, really.
Right.
Like relative to like things with her, Samantha and her and Robbie, like she seemed like she was way more pissed back before, and it's like maybe that's maturity on her part, but I mean, her only real dialogue with Robbie about that was like, "Oh, you got played by Quan," not
Yeah.
really, you know.
Right. So I mean, because she says pause, and she says to pause, but then he takes it as a
He takes that
breakup,
as a
right?
breakup,
Right. And so
and
he
I
goes
never got
wrong.
that too. So he was
Zara
being over
takes
dramatic.
Zara takes advantage because it seemed like she thought Robbie was cute, and then already Tori's coming off cold,
Yeah,
and
and she knew that Tori was with her, right? With him,
I'm not sure
because
at
they're
the
barely hanging out,
right
anyways.
at the very least she thinks there's something there, but I don't know if she knew that they
Yeah.
were together.
So yeah, you
You
can't
know,
really blame her. You know, it's really on him.
right? Yeah. So I wonder. I wonder if that's another one of those things like we're gonna bring Robbie low, so that way, when he rises up towards the fights later on, it's a little bit more satisfying. And I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, right? Like he's in a relationship with Tori, and then instead of talking to Tori about maybe hooking up with Quan, he just jumps
It's
back
just
and he
assumed,
just
yeah.
assumes it.
Oh. It's because he's got that Miyagi Do gi on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's what they do.
If you
That's what
wear
they
those,
do.
they always jump to
They always jump
conclusions.
to conclusions,
You
and
know.
he's very like a Daniel surrogate, right?
Yeah.
Like so. Yeah, I just didn't really need to see that. I didn't really think that really helps Zara's character, I guess. But they're not really trying to portray her in a certain light. Like they're just
Yeah.
using her as a vehicle to move the story along, rather than she's like an NPC rather than a main character, I guess. So,
Right. I do.
which disappoints me.
Yeah, yeah, it's because you don't know what to expect from them when you first see that they're going to be on the show. You're like, oh, I'm familiar with this person because maybe she's put out like really badass videos of her, with the bow staff and the
Oh, she's
nunchucks and
fantastic.
and this
Yeah,
training, stuff like that. And then you see this and you're like, oh man, so like I guess she's like a bad guy and she's very capable and badass, but then she's like an influencer, so I think it's just. I don't know if they were actually written to kind of be quote unquote likable,
yeah,
right? And so maybe there's going to be people out there who like, man, I hate Zara. She slept with
yeah.
Robbie. She broke up Kinry.
I think it's it's like misdirection for the audience, right? Like, because like the show portrays her as a bad guy, but really, is she really a bad guy? She really isn't.
Yeah.
You know,
No, no,
she isn't
she's an influencer and she is on a team with a quote unquote bad sensei. Now,
potentially, yeah. But Axel's not a bad guy either. You know what I
he's
mean?
not. He's a soldier.
Yeah.
He was in my interview with Patrick Lewis, I told him that his character reminds me of the movie Soldier with Kurt Russell.
Mm.
Did you see that one?
No.
They were, I think they were like kidnapped as kids and taken to some facility and basically, they were trained and raised to be soldiers.
Okay.
You just follow instructions and blah 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 blah. And so like I think this is what it was for Axel and maybe kind of like Sensei, at least the conversation Tori had with Sensei Kim about like, Friday aside, all these other things, was it all worth it kind of deal. I wonder if that's kind of Axel's headspace as well. Like he's a great fighter because that's all he knows.
That's all he
But
is.
oh man, well, how great would it feel to be a regular person at times? Have friends, have somebody you can talk to.
Yeah.
And Sam is the first person that talks to him, and now he's like, I don't know how to react.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what that is. Um, but there was a point in the dialogue with Johnny and Devin when she's crying, he
Oh,
says
that was
like,
so good.
yeah, well, there's a line that he says I just love. He says something like, if you feel that I pushed you past your limits, it's because like it's such a great quote, but because he knew that she had a higher ceiling, basically.
Yeah.
If you thought this, I'm being rough on you, that's because I know that you can do better, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if Sensei Wolf is like the bad version of that. Like he's more physically abusive, but that's kind of what he's doing as well. I'm pushing you because I know you can do better. And
Yeah.
maybe he shouldn't be slapping folks, but
Do you think Sensei Wolf is evil at this point? So I know he's aligned with Silver, but I don't really feel that
Is
he's
is he
evil.
is he the Mike Barnes of Cobra Kai as opposed to the Karate Kid 3?
Kind of, yeah,
Like the
yeah,
hired sensei.
yeah. Because I don't really feel that he's like an evil person at this point. And
Yeah,
then neither do
yeah,
any of his students, right? Like,
right. And what? Well, he was specifically told by Terry Silver to humiliate Cobra Kai and Miyagi, right? Or was that
yeah,
other? Was that somebody else?
I
Um,
remember hearing that line, and I don't know who
Right.
it was connected to, but it
Be-
probably was him, though.
Because I think Terry Silver says it. I don't
Yeah,
know if it was to Wolf or Dennis, maybe both.
yeah,
But Priest overheard. Was that over the phone? I think he was on the phone, right? Wasn't it when? And it was right before Gunther calls over the intercom, like, "Hey, everybody meet out front." I think it was when Priest was following Silver, and Silver was on the phone, and then maybe meets up Wolf and Dennis. I'm mixing it
yeah.
all up, but if you remember the dialogue, I mean, um,
Before that speech, the two speeches Johnny gives to the kids, I thought were
mhm.
cool. When one was about him and like the regret and the shame of his
Oh
life
yeah,
after losing,
yeah, yeah.
and the kids were like, "Who cares?" You know what I
Projecting.
mean?
Yeah, it's projecting.
Yeah, but his follow up to that was fantastic too. I just love I love every time you see growth from Johnny,
Yeah,
and he does it on self reflection rather than a mentor guiding him, and it's like the coolest thing seeing it.
yeah, and
And I just really hope for him to get a win, because he does the right thing so many times.
I think he will.
Yeah.
I think it would be very disappointing to not give a win to your lead. It
I
just
mean,
shows sinners.
ultimately, I feel like his win is going to be in his personal life, not necessarily in karate. It's kind of how I feel like that it was going to play out, even
And
toward the
maybe he was destined for that.
yeah,
Like I do feel because it's come up a few times, and I feel the show is gonna kind of end kind of how it started, right? Like with the addition of the Diaz family in part of Johnny's life, he the sensei could be part time. He could continue
yeah,
on a different dojo. I'm not sure, but I can also see a thing where Johnny just puts karate behind him because it wasn't part of him at the start of the show and focuses him on his family and being the better version of what he should have been
yeah.
or what he was, right? Finally being that ace degenerate or the degenerate. Wait, what?
I don't know. I feel like early on, I felt like they were trying, like early on in the series, it feels like they're trying to portray that maybe karate isn't everything in life.
Right.
Is kind of the motivation, and then maybe once Johnny and Daniel see that, like that's how they move on for their life. It's kind of how I felt like it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to kind of see where all of the characters end at the end of the show. Um,
but that's what we're seeing is even in this episode too. Like, karate isn't everything to Sensei Kim. Maybe karate isn't
right.
everything to Axel. Like karate isn't everything to, so many of the players, and then they come out more balanced
Yeah.
because of that, right? Like balance could be just their relationship with karate in their personal life.
I need to go back and listen to that conversation between Tori and Sensei Kim because I don't know if I understood it all the way,
Yeah.
and also Sensei Kim's response to Tori's question, I had a hard time reading the delivery. I don't know if Sensei Kim responded in a way where she doesn't want to tell Tori the truth, or that she hated that she had to answer Tori, that she told her the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like it's reflective of society, and even Sensei Kim like represents Asians, where like we put so much emphasis on work or
Hmm.
school or or whatever, like this in this case their hobby of martial arts, where I guess is it Gen Z now, like like they're starting to like maybe not put so much emphasis on work or this, and it's like more on their relationships
Hmm.
and not necessarily monetary values and all that, but it's more about relationships. So I feel like this is like a reflection of societal
Hmm.
values, in that balance isn't just like on the battlefield like in karate with offense and defense, but balance is all about maybe your friend's family, newfound family, versus karate. Or karate could be a it for just your job or schooling or for other things, but like you have to balance
Hmm.
different areas of your life. It's kind of, I felt like the moral of this show has been going. I mean, at least the direction the show has been going on for a few years. Does that make sense to you, or
I never looked at it that deep.
okay? Uh,
Yeah. You told me the whole societal thing?
yeah,
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 yeah.
because like
Never really looked at it that way.
because now they're pointing out, it's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't dedicate your life to karate with Axel, or how Johnny and Daniel have, and like where they're at in life, and
Hmm.
then now Tori seeing that with Sensei Kim, like if you dedicate your life to karate, you'll end up like her.
Hmm.
And then, like, dude, they're at this huge tournament, and everyone's like fighting. Like everyone's not really that centered. They don't
Right.
have any that control. So it's like maybe you should have interests outside of karate. Is kind of where it's going
It's
at.
almost like the inverse, right? Like in the real world, people get into karate for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
Often it's like, to discipline, life
yeah,
and things like that. And I don't know if you've mentioned this like in previous
yeah.
episodes. But I feel it was you. But do you remember ever saying like, it's almost as if karate's involved in your world, like, you just have problems.
In
Yeah,
this
yeah.
Miyagi verse, it
Because like
is. Yeah,
Carmen, like the moms, right? Like
they're the North Stars for all these
exactly,
characters, and they're not karate.
because they're doing karate.
Yeah,
Kyler, yeah, it was you because Kyler no longer doing karate. Hey, he's doing okay.
correct.
You know,
He found
Brooks,
balance. Yeah,
Brooks is going to college, albeit for like repairing washing machines or something. But yeah, once you get away from karate, you seem to be doing okay
yeah,
in life. And I don't know, maybe with this particular group, they I don't know if it's going to be the same, or will karate, they just have to figure out how to balance karate and life.
yeah.
I don't know.
It just shouldn't be your everything.
Yeah. Chozen-Kim, okay, we talked about that. Terry Silver. Okay, so people have been waiting for Terry Silver since the end of episode or season 5.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I have seen like just like people commenting on posts, so like fans of the show, um, a lot of people thought that that was it for Terry, like, and for me, having covered the show, I've always felt, well, the creators, they love that character, and Thomasine Griffith hasn't done a lot much acting in a very long time,
Mm.
and so to bring him back and write his character the way they did, I was like, there's no way that was the end of Terry. And also to have him go to jail and that's the last of him, there's no way, right?
Really?
And so, oh, here's the other Easter egg. I didn't even write it down. Hold on. Did I write it down? I want to make sure, because if I said it, I probably said it in a very specific way. Sleazy lawyer. There it is. So, did you recognize his sleazy lawyer?
Mm.
That's one of the creators.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Mm.
Hayden Schlossberg.
Mm.
Um, he's the one that gave us the tour of the set back in 2019, the first time I went.
Mm.
And so he's a big Terry Silver fan.
Got it.
A big troll on social media too. Like I think going into season 5, he revealed that there was going to be a death. I might be mixing up my seasons, and so we're like, well, oh no, I think it was season 3, and it ended up being like flashbacks in Vietnam.
Mm.
People die. And so he likes to troll a little bit to kind of like just throw off the scent maybe. I even coined the term. I don't know if it's really picked up, but Haydenanigans.
Mm,
Like anytime he's out on X, like saying anything, I don't know if you want to believe him, verbatim, because there just might be some trolling there.
okay.
But anyway, like yeah, so he's the lawyer. So what did you think about not how he was reintroduced, but how they used Terry Silver? Interesting. So
I
I can see people being underwhelmed with how he was utilized in the second batch, and I think we'll just have to wait and see for sure. Um, yeah, because it's almost part two almost. I don't want to say erases because that's not what it is. It changes things from like what we knew of him before. Like I can see when season five ended, I knew that wasn't the way he was going to go out
mm,
because I felt like the stuff with him and Kreese, that's unfinished business. There was because Kreese was quote unquote like because he was what happened with Kreese? Let me see. You got to okay. So at that time, Kreese was still in jail.
yeah,
Kreese was still in jail and then escaped while Terry Silver was being arrested. Right, that all kind of happened all at the same time there at the end, and so I felt like that was something that was going to need to get addressed. Silver going to jail, and Kreese escaping.
yeah.
So like I knew at some point they would have to see each other, and to what ends, I don't know. Because I did you think anything was going to happen to either of them at the end there?
You know what? What I don't remember what the conflict was that broke him apart exactly, but when Kreese goes into his locker or his bag or whatever and pulls out his dagger,
Hmm.
I'm like, "Are you serious? He's gonna kill this guy?" Like it just seemed like a stretch.
Hmm.
Like we're dealing with like murder now on this show, and it's like, man, that doesn't really feel like season one. That doesn't really feel like Karate Kid movies. Like
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you serious? You're gonna bring a dagger to a fight?"
Well, but with television shows, well, you got to raise the stakes like every
I get,
season, right?
yeah, or you can just ground it and just and focus on the relationships, I guess. I mean, you don't. I think that's where you fall apart sometimes when you raise the stakes over and over again. And it just doesn't feel familiar anymore.
I think they had to kind of raise the tension,
Yeah,
with this
you could
and
do that without murder, though.
yeah, I guess, and also for it to be fucking Quan.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't murdering Quan, but it's like the death of Quan.
I mean, he attempted murder then, theoretically.
Ooh,
Quan, when he
oh,
pulls his knife out, like
yeah,
he's not meaning to injure.
right, right. The way he holds it
He
was very
jumps
much
out. Yeah,
was going to be a stabbing
it was a
motion. It
fatal
just,
blow.
yeah, and it just,
Is he really going to do that? I don't think so. They didn't really pay that off well. They didn't build that up well, at least. Is he that pissed off at Axel that he would want to kill Axel?
yeah, I don't
Not
know.
really.
No, it did kind of, I don't want to say it seemed out of character because you can go in and find things that maybe, um, that would kind of set things in motion. And remember, because I said, hey, I want to see a very specific scene, and after we finished it, we went back and watched when Treese was addressing both Quan and Tori couldn't kick that board.
Yeah,
I forgot the dialogue again, but I feel we're kind of watching Kreese and well, it's focusing on Tori as Kreese is like speaking, but if you also, I feel if you listen to what is being said, Quan can take that and also kind of misconstrue what Kreese was actually trying to tell him.
mm,
He's saying one thing to Tori, but I think Quan is hearing that and taking it another way, and so it's almost like do what you got to do at all costs or something. And so I don't know. I think Quan is maybe over in on himself, and all these like little losses is really getting to him, you know.
yeah. I mean, but they don't really show it much.
Right, like
Like
we're
they
we're
should.
missing some of that stuff where like
Yeah,
it's really affecting him. Instead, he's kind of like going after Tori and calling her out as a captain, like, what are you doing and stuff. But
but if you're gonna beat Quan down, you should have built him up so that the descent feels like, all right, I can understand why he resorted to wanting to murder.
mm,
But we just never really saw that motivation at all.
it's a spur of the moment. Like let's say to kind of going on a bit of a tangent, let's put this in the real world. Quan goes to trial, right, for killing Axel. You can you say that was premeditated? Because it was spur of the moment, right? I don't think that's you
It's
can't
not premeditated.
right,
No.
because it was just like that. So I don't think Quan was like really that maniacal laugh. I don't think he was in the right mind frame,
Yeah.
but we didn't really get anything in between that would, lead up to him reacting that way. Like that
No,
did feel off.
forced. It felt forced.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and I just have a problem with him using whatever technique that is. It's like, all right, you have a knife, you have a dagger, you're gonna go after a guy. You're really gonna just jump in the air, lead with your kick, and then stab, or whatever. Like you would. I've never seen any knife fight like that. It's like, why don't you just stay on the ground and then just slash?
maybe that's his weakness. He likes
Come on, they're all
yeah,
world caliber fighters.
sure,
He should
but
probably know how to use. I mean, like he should know how to use a blade at least. Like,
so I don't actually know this, but I wonder if Kwan's instincts when he fights is often to go high,
sure.
right? Because even when they first fight, oh, you know what? And maybe this could be like the execution as to like maybe why we don't feel like it was quite earned. But do you think it could have been stuff spewing from that fight early on, the
It was
three
the
on
2-on-1.
two?
It was the three
Right,
on
yeah.
two.
So it kind of started there,
I
but we
know
didn't get that
it's
sense.
still a weak. It's still a
Yeah,
weak
because you,
reason.
you get some moments where like Kwan gets up and he's just glaring and he's upset.
Then all they have to
But
do is show him frustrated, pound the ground, or
yeah, it's more stairs.
yeah.
Yeah, that's that. You know what? He might have pounded.
All right, but it
Yeah.
still wasn't really when earlier, they're beating you in the over the head with some of these other things like
Mhm.
that one. They didn't really go far enough
Right,
to explain, right?
right. Like maybe one less Robbie looking at Tori and focusing on
Yeah,
Quan
just
just
one
hitting
look.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
but
or even like because I know Quan has, excuse me, has thrown little quips at Robbie, even in Korean, and then like in the last episode where he says "lucky bastard," like that, like maybe he could also say something to Axel,
yeah,
you
I
know,
just hated how he had this knife or dagger. He conceals it, right? He conceals it in his hand like this, and he decides to run and jump in the air, does his little spin stuff to stab, and then before all that, Daniel is
yeah.
looking from the opposite side of the mat or the gym and running at him saying, Quan, no, or something like that.
I think I
Is that what
think
he says?
yeah, yeah,
Quan, no.
yeah.
And it's like, how did you even see this dagger from that far away when his motivation is to like conceal it,
Mhm.
in his arm? There's
Well,
no way.
we saw a scene where
So
Kreese
Daniel can see it, but Axel can't see it?
well, so Kreese was sharpening that young dough like
Uh-huh.
early on, right? And it was so shiny that it caught Daniel's eye,
Okay.
and it was just completely. You guys should see Phil's face right now,
Yeah.
but Quan just held it
Yeah.
just perfectly out of Axel's vantage point.
Correct. Yeah. So Axel don't see it, but Daniel further away with all the people in front of him, he sees it and yells, Quan, no.
Well,
Come on.
okay, you forget that Daniel has the eye of the tiger.
Oh, okay. He's the best.
Oh,
Uh,
that's it. Yeah, it's one of those things.
oh, come on.
Yeah,
And
I know.
that's your dramatic thing, and that's not supposed to drive it home, this
Yeah,
death.
yeah,
And I'm like, what led up to that, like, took me out of the immersion where
yeah.
I couldn't even buy that.
I will be honest, like I'm not gonna show anybody, but I recorded your reactions discreetly
Yeah.
in two specific moments, and both times you didn't react the way I thought you would react.
Yeah.
So the first one
One was
was Chosen,
the thing, yeah.
yeah. So
The
Chosen getting on
scooter.
the scooter, I'm like, okay, he didn't really
It
react.
was funny. It
Okay,
just wasn't laugh out loud
yeah,
funny.
yeah. I'll go back and rewatch it. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it since I recorded it.
Yeah.
But then the second one was Kwan singing, and you were just like, "That's so stupid."
Quan what?
Kwan getting landing on the
Yeah.
dagger.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely had a different reaction because I ate all of this up in terms of like I bought in what they were selling me.
Yeah.
I didn't overthink anything. I didn't think about why was it Daniel? Why was it not Sensei Kim? Who this is her pupil?
Yeah.
Why was it Daniel? I didn't think of any of that. I was definitely shocked by the stab, and it was just like it was like when Miguel fell down, broke his back. I was more like shocked and just kind of speechless and thought nothing else. Let me finish the rest of this episode, see what happens. Unfortunately for us, cut the feed, and that was it. It was like, damn, so
Because it's very vague what Quan was doing with the knife or the dagger, right?
well, how do you
And
mean?
because he's concealed it and he
Right?
leads with a kick,
Okay.
and then like the dagger is like up here or something like that. You don't really necessarily see it, right? and then it was vague what even happened for him to even fall over. It's like
We we rewound it a few
we
times.
had to rewatch it, and they're like, oh, it's like this other
Uh,
lead, this trailing leg
right.
accidentally makes contact, right?
Yes.
Here's where my I would have done it. It's like, all right, instead of doing the conceal thing, just show him if he earns it. Show him like actually going to stab the dude,
Yeah, yeah.
just to stab Axel in like an overt act,
Yeah,
and then having
maybe
Axel
right.
and having Axel like, oh my god, in self defense mode, he kicks Quan deliberately, and then Quan accidentally stabs himself. Like that would have been more dramatic, I think, and it would have looked better. But they just want to show
Yeah.
off. They just want to show off Quan jumping and doing a spin kick again.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
which he is fantastic at, of
Sure,
course.
sure,
But
of course.
it would have been it would have told the story better if there was a deliberate act, stab, and then you get kicked, and then you accidentally hit yourself.
Yeah, so you would have preferred don't conceal it. I can just have it up in your hand, run, and then if you want to jump, sure.
Okay, but if you're going to conceal it,
Yeah,
then at least the attack should look different. Daniel shouldn't have saw it and ran.
yeah,
But if it's going like this, and Daniel goes, Quan, no, it makes more sense,
yeah. Interesting.
right?
Yeah,
Or
no, I
just
get
leading with a stab,
right, right,
Quan, no.
right. No, I get it. But if we got what you got, I wouldn't have reacted the way I
Oh, really?
did. Well, because we had completely opposite reactions.
Got it.
I was just, I was just definitely more so upset that it had to be Quan. But I don't know. I would have to marinate on this more, and maybe when me and Watch Party get to our 610 review, um, like who else could have had it been? Because I do wonder if because I feel sometimes that the fans think that something is going to happen or go in a certain way, and if the people from the show, if they have a sense of that, I feel they might try to,
Swerve.
yeah,
Yeah.
divert, like,
And that's fine.
expectations, because they do that with like Allie's reveal. They gave us like this doctor who looks like Allie from behind in the hospital, and she turns around, Johnny's like, oh, but this is like swelling of the music, and we're like, oh shit, that's Allie, but it's not. And then we forget about her for a few episodes, and then she shows up, and it's a shock, and so they do that, and I don't know if it's like, well, it's Quan because no one's gonna expect that. Everyone's gonna think it's probably somebody from Miyagi Do.
Okay.
And all the clips that come out in the trailer, you see Kenny. Do you remember seeing Kenny in the trailer? Because you watched it for the first time after we watched part
Yeah,
two.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, see, and so going into part two, it wasn't Kenny there, right? We knew who the six was. So now you got to be like, well, why is Kenny there? Did somebody die?
Yeah.
Did somebody get badly injured? So I don't know if it had to be Quan. It sucks because it's like, well, damn, because we wanted him to kick more ass.
Yeah.
But if I feel it kind of makes sense. It I don't want to comment on whether or not that it was right to kill Quan off, right?
Hmm.
But my thing is like, okay, part two of season six kind of focused on airing out a lot of grievances between characters
I agree.
and resolving a lot of the, not loopholes, but like some of these things that we need to tie up, right?
Hmm.
And work towards an ending. Everybody is starting to make amends. Now, I feel going into part three, there shouldn't be any qualms between anybody now. And I'm not sure why it still couldn't be Team Korea. We don't know what's going to happen with Team Korea.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the death of Quan is gonna be the end of it. That makes zero sense to me with Kreese and Sensei Kim still being part of the picture. What are you gonna do? Not have them in part three? You,
Do you
you
think
know,
they're going to elevate him though?
I don't know how they're gonna do that, but
Yeah.
my thing is
That'll
like,
be kind of an afterthought.
well, because Iron Dragons is still there.
Yeah.
So what happens? What happens to the tournament? What happens to these teams? If Team Korea is still around and the Sekai Tekai continues, which again, I don't want to comment on that because man, so much is going on right now. We only seen it. I've only seen it twice, three times. Some episodes three times, some twice, and so I'm still processing everything. But I'm just trying to picture like what's going on because now the underdogs are starting to rise, and so the only path is for them to continue to be victorious, and win. Unless, didn't you say that you would prefer that they don't win? Was that
I
you?
prefer that they don't win,
Yeah,
just so that they could realize, hey, karate isn't everything in life
it's
for a
not.
lot of the
Yeah,
characters.
yeah. Yeah, and I can see that being a real thing
Yeah,
because I actually like some of those dramatized sports movies
yeah,
where it's the underdog story, but they lose at the championship.
yeah.
There's at least two of those that exist. Sunset Park being one of them from the 90s. But I can see that happening, but as a fan, non-podcaster and stuff like that, I would almost feel like, damn, they really built up that Sekai Tech guy for them to lose. Yeah, I don't know. I feel I might feel some type of way about that.
When I watch professional wrestling, they talk about when certain characters are so popular, they don't need a championship belt to like build up their popularity anymore. And
Mm,
I kind of feel like that's what's going on here.
yeah.
Right now, if you let Terry Silver win with his surrogate dojo and Iron Dragons,
Hmm.
they get their wish, they get their money, and then they can expand and get out of debt problems.
Yeah.
And then if Terry's motivation is really to get back at Daniel or Priest, which I can't tell which is the bigger priority, well then he finishes out his side quest and he's done, and he can exit away. He's done,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Cobra Kai loses. Who cares about Kreese? But then, if the good guys Miyagi Do's loses and they realize that there's more to life than karate, and it's like, okay, well then everyone can just walk away,
Mm,
right?
man,
But
yeah.
where does the story end when if Miyagi wins? It's like, so Daniel's not gonna like teach anymore, or you know what I mean? Like,
I don't
why would
know.
that be the end?
I still want to know how the hell they're gonna bring in Hillary Swank if she even
You
has any
really
part
swag.
of. Yeah, I still feel there's a part of me that still feels that she's gonna show up, but after the events of season 6, part 2, how the fuck do you bring her in to any of this? You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, that's not even a concern of any a viewer right now, right?
Well, it's mine.
I mean, as
Yeah.
a fan,
There-
but
there-
not
there-
as a viewer,
there's a
right?
lot of us. There's a lot of us
Yeah.
that want to see Julie back. Uh, I think, and you know what? Maybe she doesn't come back, and it will be filed underneath. Well, they didn't give us the fan service, of like bringing that character, but they set that up for her possible
Yeah.
appearance.
Would they ever do something where just have like her like a body double standing from behind, like in the camera from behind, and then do an interaction that way?
It's not their style,
Yeah.
and they kind of flirted with that a little bit with having Miyagi
Yeah.
in. It was right after the episode where Cobra Kai trashes Miyagi-Do,
Yeah.
and then the next episode it opens up on like a close up of a hand cleaning up and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember my first initial thought. I was like, oh man, they went right to cleaning up Miyagi-Do,
Yeah.
but it was actually fucking Mr. Miyagi,
Yeah.
from behind, and it looked great. So
That's
that.
what I thought they were gonna do with this flashback here too, with Daniel's dream sequence.
Oh shit, we haven't even got to
Uh,
that.
but going back to Axel and
Zara.
no, Axel
Well,
and Quan,
okay.
that scene, really they never built up Axel. They never really built up. I'm sorry, they never got any emotional investment out of either character, really, right? Like the audience hasn't really connected with either of those characters,
I think maybe just the POV is Sam. So if you
as an audience member. Like
yeah.
you do not really care. I can't picture too many people caring that Quan dies as an audience member. And
Wait, wait, wait. Say that again. You don't think many would care that he died?
unless you're just as a neutral audience member,
Hmm.
that he hasn't built up that equity with the audience yet. You might care, and I like it because he's Asian and it's Asian representation.
Yeah,
But like his character hasn't built up any equity yet, or that character hasn't had any equity yet.
yeah,
And then now Axel doing that blow, like they portray it like he didn't intentionally do it because it looked like a trailing leg,
right. It was. Yeah,
so, but why involve those two when the audience hasn't had any emotional connection to either? There hasn't been that equity with either one.
yeah.
So I question that choice. It was just a throwaway thing. They just wanted for shock value and didn't want to involve any of the main characters
Right.
so that
It's
they could avoid addressing that.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard for me to process because I really want to know what their plans are for Iron Dragons going into part 3
Yeah.
because I thought they were setting up Team Korea. So like again, what's going on with not even alliances, but like all these like rivalries. I don't know who's on what side or whatever, and that could be by design. But
Because
the
what if the person that died was someone you cared about?
right.
Like as part of the main cast, like a Dimitri who's like, I'm going to MIT. Oh crap, I can't go because he's
Oh,
dead.
the whole Boys in the Hood thing. Like,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like
No, I get
that would have been way more interesting.
right.
But here, a guy died that we don't really care about. We just wanted to see him kick some ass some more. We never really got that, But there hasn't been that equity. Like when Iron Man dies in Avengers 1 and Tony Stark drives up, those verticals, like, oh man, everyone's so emotionally like there was equity built, there was so
Oh,
much emotional
absolutely.
connection.
Yeah, yeah,
Here, there's none. So the deaf doesn't really feel that great. But if you're in that world and you're watching on the internet broadcast and it's like, oh my God, some kid died,
right.
like those people would care.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, like I obviously I love that the character of Quan, and I had a lot of hopes for what he was going to bring in part two.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh man, there's like now you got Iron Dragons. That's also like kind of rivaling for screen time. Is that what
yeah,
rivaling? But anyway, it's hard to kind of focus on everybody because there's so many people, and it's upsetting that we get the introduction of Team Korea, get Kwan, and we're like, holy shit, a badass that's gonna wreak havoc.
yeah.
Not really see the havoc, see a lot of poking around, with the quips and little physical things here and there. Uh, I was just more a little upset that it had to be Quan.
Yeah.
Now, if we got more of that, where yeah, we loved him more, then we could have probably felt a little bit more like really hurt and burned that like it was that character. He's a fan favorite because we wanted to see him like kick ass.
Yeah, because
But
he's great on the screen,
yeah,
right?
right.
But like you see the intros to the Korean Cobras, like they look like some cohesive unit. They look like the Korean team from Best of the Best. Like they were
Hmm.
intimidating.
Right.
So you're telling me now Juan gets stabbed and dies,
Hmm.
and not one Cobra comes and checks up on him, but Daniel
Right.
comes and checks on him only?
Right. It's that's a very interesting, blocking, but also decision. So hopefully I can
I don't like that.
find out.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you're someone died and you're not gonna even
I
check up on
agree.
your teammate?
I
Like
agree.
that's
Like
some
it
BS.
should have been at the very least Sensei Kim,
Yeah.
because
And all the kids should be there just standing in the background too. Like they should all run up and
right. They definitely gathered, but it's
but like
well,
everyone involved in the fight just stops and stares, and then like the Cobras like run up and like check up on their boy, just like in basketballs, an injury happens or
sure,
any
sure.
sport.
But it's also, remember when Miguel fell off? It was what Sam was like
Yeah,
the only one that ran,
yeah,
and then we would eventually get security to come and check in
sure.
on it, but everybody kind of kept their distance. So it's
It's true in their universe, I guess.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
But I think I was gonna say something about Kwan. I love a lot of Brandon's facial reactions.
oh, he was great, dude.
The way Kwan pokes at when I say pokes, I'm talking about like anything, not just physical, but even like the things that he says. Anytime he gets a reaction, I love Kwan's reaction that he got a reaction out of somebody. He's like, "Ooh, I just, I just, let's see this guy get mad.
Yeah,
Ooh, I got something out of him. Come on, let's go." And so, I keep teasing it, but we keep forgetting to get to it. But I love the sequence when Team Korea, drunk Team Korea, is finds Sam and Axel walking. So I kind of like that because I didn't
and that
really.
wasn't even full Team Korea, right? It was only three.
It was three, yeah. It was Min Suk,
Yeah,
Yoon, and Kwon.
yeah.
And so yeah, they kind of literally stumble into the scene, and I like that the whole altercation.
And why not throw Tori in that just for the hell of it, or why not throw
Where
all of
was
them?
Tori at that time?
Well, you could
She,
re
I think she went back to her hotel.
sure, but you could reposition it and just change it. You know what I mean? Like I don't see why they never really got shots of all six.
I think
When Quan is bullying Robbie, like all right, those were great, but then why not have all the other Cobras there? So if Robbie's trying to step to him, like they're all like he has to think twice.
yeah, I'm
Like
not sure. It could be
we never got a
yeah.
shot of all of them.
It could be a number of things, because there's so many people and like filming could be so chaotic. I wonder if maybe just some sequences, certain people weren't available because these stunt performers, like your other three Cobras. Yeah, I've one in particular I follow. I've seen him. He was in another project recently too that also came out. So these people they're doing a lot of stunts like locally in Atlanta, and I
Well,
wonder if they just weren't available for certain scenes and
I
things.
mean, they don't need to be doing stunts. They could just be
Well,
standing.
but that's what I mean.
Oh,
But they're probably doing other projects and wasn't available for a certain sequence, maybe.
okay. Well, you could
Yeah,
have
hard to say.
extras wearing the Cobra Kai uniform and just show them from behind or something like
I
that.
suppose.
But just show power in numbers. They never seem like an intimidating threat,
I don't know.
like that they were in
Okay.
Korea or like in the movies. Like, in the movies, like they're flanking Johnny pretty much the entire time.
Yeah. Daniel.
No, flanking Johnny.
Who?
All the Cobras, like they're all together as a pack for like a lot of the damn scenes, right?
Oh yeah, you mean that they're always just with him?
They're always just
Yeah,
with him.
but that was like one movie, and then you're talking
Sure.
about like
But even
a
in
few
like the
seasons.
even when they show their intro in Team Korea, like or in Korea, like they're all there too, you know? Like
Yeah, 'cause yeah, they're arriving. Yeah, I don't know.
they just dropped the ball, I felt like, on just Korean Cobras in general after building making it
Just
look
even
so
the
cool.
yeah, just
The
presence of Team
presence.
Korea
Yeah.
in general. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, you talk about like the others of Team Korea, but holy shit, Zara and Axel are literally like all there is of Iron Dragon.
Yeah.
Because you see like the other four like in fight and stuff like that, but there's no focus on any of them
Well,
at
we don't
all.
need to focus on them, but you
No,
know that
no,
they're
but
there.
yeah, yeah.
They
But
got all six in their group shots twice. And you don't even get one group shot of Cobra Kai,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I know. Well, basically, what we're saying is, Team Korea needs their own show,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where Kwon is brought back from the dead by Mr.
Oh,
Miyagi.
I was gonna
This
say
is,
that. What do you think? Like, what would you think if they swerved us there? And would you want to see Quan alive again?
I feel for the way he went down, it I think it would undercut that ending,
Yeah, I would too.
because you guys already kind of did that with like you Chosen.
Yeah,
But then it gets revealed at the very end in that same episode that he did survive that, and that was a big like gash to his back, a lot of blood, but yeah, the stabbing and that pool of blood, oh man, it would,
it would suck if they brought him back.
yeah, but also
The backlash, but it would be great to see him on screen. But
I don't know what your thought is about this, but Bloodsport, did you before we see him again, did you think what was his name? Jackson?
hmm
Did you think he died? Did
no,
you think Chung Lee killed him? No.
no,
So you knew he lived even before
yeah,
seeing him in the hospital the very
yeah,
first time.
yeah.
Hmm. Because I feel like like my earliest memory, I thought that Chung Lee killed him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then to see him like just battered up in the hospital, I was like, oh shit, he lived through that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I never really got the impression he died, but I knew that the threat was there because I think they implied that he killed someone in the previous tournament.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And so that's what I'm kind of wondering, like if he survives this, I wonder if it's going to be that, like he doesn't come back, but
yeah.
we'll see him,
Mending, like recovering or
yeah,
something. I
recovering,
hope he
and
doesn't,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
I
it
know,
cheapens it.
right, right, because it's just like, well, what's the point at this point,
Yeah, that was a good exit. You don't want to cheapen it anymore.
good exit? I don't think so.
I mean,
It's
like
not what
to die. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
what I wanted, but he
right, right.
died, and people were sympathetic in that world, right?
Hmm.
Like you don't want to cheapen that, I guess.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't matter what rivalries you have, who you feud with. At the end of the day, no one should be dying, right?
yeah,
Like that's what everyone's thinking of right now. And it will be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of episodes, because how are the other dojos and fighters going to feel? Do they want to continue on? Like,
no one's gonna care.
do you? I mean, that could very much be what happens, but I would think like, man, the how was a knife snuck in to this,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Well, they
we're
have weapons anyways in a weapon competition. They're
that's true.
non-bladed, right? Any of them bladed? They didn't have size or anything, did they? Well, we saw ninja stars at one point in the show, and then didn't we
What
see them?
was that just at the display with Johnny with the
I think so.
nunchucks?
I think so.
I don't remember, but I don't even know what that was
I
about.
don't even know what that was about either.
Yeah, because it's sponsorship, but maybe it's like,
Oh, we give you equipment?
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Johnny's like, no, I like this, and then here Creed comes like, no, this knife's better. It's like, well, this which is actually just as deadly. Kim suspects chosen Jangdo. I don't think I have any leads here,
Episode 5, I wrote
which is actually 10.
I'm sorry,
But yeah,
10. Yeah.
this is 10.
Corey didn't have any problem with fighting Samantha for captain back in the first batch, right? After her mom died, right?
Okay,
She had
yes.
no problem with that. But now she's more conflicted at the Sakai Taikai. And it felt kind of weird to me. Um,
But do you think that's because she was being irrational after the death of her mom, not really thinking clearly, right? That's why the LaRussos wanted to stop the fight, not just to protect Sam, but also like, Corey, this isn't the right time.
yeah, I have a really big problem with that scene. I think I rewatched it right before we started this podcast,
Hmm.
and it's like so the motivation is from the Russos, Amanda and Daniel. Hey, let's stop the fight for captain,
Hmm.
right? Because you're not in a position to fight. Your mental state's not right because your mom died. But if she can't make that decision on her own,
Hmm.
why are they allowing her to make the decision to quit the team?
Right.
And to me, I don't really like, yes, she did physically quit the team or verbally and then walk out, but really they shouldn't have accepted that quitting anyways,
Yeah.
right? But they did, and they moved on from her real quick, and basically, to me, I felt like they pushed her out to join Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I can see it that way. For me, that's one of those things that I definitely just like let it wash over me and just like fine. I don't love that because that's very good points that you make. Um,
If someone's not in like a mental state to make a decision, you shouldn't hold that decision
right.
final,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But obviously, like it's something that is just going to happen,
Yeah.
right? To have her join Team Korea.
So I would have liked them to like maybe address with her and Daniel and Amanda that like, hey, their actions were the ones that pushed her over, not
Yeah,
her choice,
an
not her choice.
acknowledgement.
Yeah. And they didn't really deal with that.
Yeah,
So
and maybe
and that
maybe
would have been a good that would have been a good plot, plot line for her because she's been like one dimensional this whole time on the second batch where it's just like, oh
Tori,
yeah, just
yeah,
like
just sad Tori.
melodramatic sad Tori, and it's
Yeah.
like that's not really like her too, you know?
Well, speaking of emotions, one of the things I love about the show is crying Miguel.
Oh, I wrote that too, man.
What is crying
Yeah.
Miguel? Oh my God!
I was thinking about that, but go ahead.
Anytime Miguel cries, it's a great scene.
It's a great scene,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, we said that in real time yesterday. You brought that up, and I think I was thinking that too. I also love motivational Miguel, whether he's
Oh,
parenting
Daniel and Johnny on
Johnny.
the beach.
I love that. Or he did that individually with Johnny later too. I think he's a real leader. He's just a kid, but he's kind of really the only person that's a combatant that is kind of like I call them North Stars or like he's like a North Star for others, right? Like he
Mm,
he shows people the way. Whereas in this show or this universe, at least the Cobra Kai universe, actually even in the movies, it feels like the women that don't participate are the North Stars for a lot of the male characters.
mm,
But he is one of the only male North Stars that fight. I mean, Chozen is too, but he's not really fighting anymore. So
right, right.
well, yeah.
Yeah, I love that part on the beach when Miguel first sees them fighting.
Yeah.
Because remember, you thought, what did you say that you thought Johnny was trying to do to Daniel? Just kind of like,
Yeah, I didn't like that he was stooping so low, I think, right? Like he was hidden below the belt.
well, I thought
He
you
dug
thought that
didn't he dig at Miyagi being a murderer or something like that or killer?
well, he did say like he was like a thief and a liar
Yeah.
in the first part in
Uh-huh.
part one. This time around, he does say something about Miyagi. But I think it's like basically the same thing. Like
Yeah.
he's just kind of saying it again. Um, but what I loved about one of the things that I loved is when Miguel sees them, getting ready, like about to fight, and you thought that like maybe one was motivating the other or trying to, right? Like you read it a little bit differently at first.
I can't remember, but yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
And so, again, what I liked about it was when we hear Miguel like, "Hey," and then you look over and Miguel is like literally in front of this crowd, and the crowd is all just staring in that direction as well.
Mm.
So I like to watch background,
Hmm.
just to kind of see like, oh, were they given instructions or, so I just like to watch things and, other people and extras
Okay.
and try to think like, what were they told, or did they come up with themselves? It's just something I've always done
Okay.
as a kid.
Okay.
And so there's this crowd that I think they're like sitting in a what is like a covered thing on the beach. Oh, I think there's a word for it, like
Cabana?
cabana. Yeah, it was something like that, or maybe like some sort of outdoor bar, but it was like a little umbrella
Okay.
thing, and maybe like a half a dozen people, just sitting there, and they're all like turned and looking in the direction of the two senseis about to fight.
Okay. Okay.
But Miguel is like in front of them, going like, "Hey," so it's kind of funny that like yeah, everyone's like all the bystanders are watching, kind of what's going on. It just adds to like that feels real, like
Yeah.
you're out in public place, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I made this comment, but another thing that I liked about part two is that because it's in Barcelona, like I was getting a little Miyagi Dojo fatigue, because that is their dojo, and I feel like that's where a lot of the location was. But it's like, well, where else are you gonna really put them between the LaRusso's house and the Miyagi Dojo?
I didn't have wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did though.
Yeah, I felt like I don't know. Maybe it's just because like we continue to see people from other dojos be added to Miyagi-Do and walk into that backyard, and it's just that thing like And maybe because that was kind of a staple of the movies.
I think they need it as a grounding or like a place to like recenter like the series, right? Like
Yeah,
it's to
and
bring familiarity.
and maybe I don't love that it's always outside, but it's a big dojo, and
Yeah.
that's where all the space is. But you go back and watch those first two seasons, and the dojo was much smaller, obviously, but a lot of stuff happened inside too. Even parts of season three, even inside and outside.
What do you think of the training montage?
I thought it was funny. It was very in line of everything else, even
Yeah.
season four with Johnny and his mixtape and going out on
Yeah.
the beach. I love that they got like some sort of cabbie to drive so they can both
That was
hang out.
awesome. Yeah,
So
that
that
was
was
funny.
funny.
Yeah.
I watching it with you, that was the first time I noticed the cabbie. I
Uh,
thought that they were like one was driving and steering as they were hanging out. So I didn't realize there was a third person in that little vehicle.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I did think that maybe it ran a little long, but I really, really wish that they used a licensed song.
Yeah, you did mention that, and I
It was
agree.
so cool, you know?
And thinking back, I don't well, they used one song in the first episode, and that was it.
Yeah.
Hold Me Now by the Thompson Twins, and that's when after Quan wins the hotel room,
Uh,
which by the way, I loved how he's just like snuggled and cuddled up with all the pillows.
After he won it
After he won,
on
he's
his
just
own bed too, right?
yeah by
Yeah.
himself with all the pillows, and everybody else is sharing. So this is a big question. I feel people are going to ask: Who farted? Was that Miguel? Was that Dimitri?
God, what did we say yesterday?
Because Hawk already called it out. I don't want to be in the room with him because he farts,
Yeah.
or
And
something
he
like that.
looks the other direction. Yeah.
And then they start getting into. I
Who
love
was next to Hawk?
Hawk slept with Miguel, and I think it was Robbie and Dimitri on the other one.
Yeah, I think my initial opinion was it was Miguel.
Yeah, yeah, but everybody plays it as it wasn't them. So that's the
Uh-huh.
thing. It's just like, man,
'Cause I was like, man, because the initial reaction I had was when he said that, I was like, oh man, it was Miguel. That's so racist. You know,
I don't know if
Uh,
that's what
that's what I was thinking. So I don't know if it really is him, but that was the initial thought in my head. I was like, oh,
yeah.
so that was where I was going. Yeah, I rewatched some of the more. I watched episode one, and that had licensed songs.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, yeah. This whole series has done great job with licensed songs. It's owned by Sony, so I'm sure they have a good catalog of things to draw from. I really thought that they needed a licensed song, or at least just like nostalgic music to go with that. I was hoping for Eye of the Tiger or something like that, or something Rocky-ish.
Right.
Whether it's like a generic Timu version of one of those, or the real song is fine. But
I don't know if there's like any rules or restrictions
it's money,
on
right?
yeah, I feel it's just like yeah, paying for the rights, because you hear like in interviews and whatever, like, oh, that song costs a lot,
Yeah.
like something like that. It just depends on the artist. But part one I think just had the one song, right, the Cyndi Lauper
I believe
song.
so. I believe so.
And so part two has the one, so maybe they're just kind of doing one a drop.
Hmm.
I would have to sit here and think about it, but I think season five in whole already had like a number of them,
Hmm.
you know.
But you're making so much emphasis on this training montage, and training
Right.
montage is so known for 80s movies and
Yeah.
stuff. Like you had to emphasize this.
That would be that'd be a good question to ask. Just kind of how did you guys decide, or how did you guys make the decision on like going with the composers Zach and Leo as opposed to using an 80s song at that point.
Uh,
Um,
I want to
okay,
say that
yeah.
was where I thought Robbie was a wimp. Quan cheap shots him. He doesn't hit back. I thought that was lame. I thought when they did the whole group fighting, when it was all chaos, I thought that was really poorly done.
Hmm.
You couldn't really tell what was going on. The choreography didn't look really cool. The way they shot it, I didn't really like, especially compared to group fights in seasons earlier.
Mm.
My favorite still, I think, is still the school fight. Is something that so impressive, like that one shot thing, like
Yeah.
that was I it just felt like the choreography was just more it was just way better early on. And I think you said something about how they switched fight coordinators or
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, and it definitely feels foreign compared to rewatching some of the earlier episodes. So but once they went into individual fights in this final group battle, like those were all fantastic. I can't even remember how many there were, or which people squared off against who, but once you started seeing one-on-ones towards the end, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that was really well done.
Yeah,
It was so dramatic too.
I think the Wonder would be difficult with that many people because I
Yeah.
think it was a huge.
I don't think they can do it with that many people, but like they could have pulled back and showed more of the combat, or just
Sure,
like showing actual, people performing skills or whatever. But it was just all it felt like watching the Royal Rumble in wrestling, where you just can't tell anyone can't get their offense in. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. I'm sure many people got that reference. It went over
yeah.
my head.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I know of the Royal Rumble, and I feel there were some video games called that, like
Okay.
NES.
Man, I dropped like three wrestling references already, so sorry.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's going to be plenty of people that would appreciate it. Shout outs to Britt Baker.
Oh, Britt
Yeah,
Baker was on
yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah.
So
DMD.
yeah,
DMD.
yeah,
DMD.
right, right. DMD, she is a dentist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if she's never been called like the Tooth Fairy or anything, right?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't think
just
so.
because Tori was, and I
Yeah.
wonder if there's any sort of like subtle nod to like
Yeah.
Britt Baker. But yeah, I got to meet her at Steel City Con.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's it. Um,
Yeah, I was questioning what she had to do with the show for a bit, and then just seeing her do that little slam at the end, it looked like kind of like I think it was called an uranagi, but it's like a rock bottom that she kind of performed while
is it
standing.
hers or isn't Rock Bottom the Rock's
Yeah,
move?
that's the rock's move. I don't really
I wonder if she has a version.
I don't know what her special move is.
I
So,
saw that move
but it was
and I
cool.
did wonder. I did wonder. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I wonder if that's hers.
yeah.
You
But
know?
it was just cool seeing something like a wrestling type move on the show. So like that
Yeah.
was cool to me.
I'm trying to think, were there any other castings that we haven't found? Because I almost completely forgot about Britt Baker. But I really liked Gunther.
Yeah.
He was really great because I was coming in, I had wondered how much of Gunther were we going to get,
Hmm.
and was it just going to be him there just to kind of give us like Sekai Tekai dialogue? Is that it? But I really love that shit with him and that other sensei
I enjoyed him a lot more
at
this
the very
batch.
end. It's
Yeah,
so crazy.
yeah.
Do you remember Mighty Ducks 2?
I love Mighty Ducks
Yeah.
too. I've
So,
seen that
I
over
mean,
hundreds of
it's
times.
fine. Mighty Ducks 2 is the thing where I hated in the 90s, where usually the second sequel was so fucking 90s. You know, like Ninja
Okay,
Turtles 2, Mighty Ducks 2.
okay.
It felt so like Nickelodeon and because like Terminator Ninja Turtles the second one, they got rid of actual weapons, right? Because they had to because of the violence, and they were getting criticism from like
From the first one?
yeah,
But the first one never really used weapons anyways.
well, but they had real
They had
weapons.
real weapons.
So, but yeah, and
They
so
never stabbed or impaled
right,
anyone or
and then that's why like the opening sequence of Ninja Turtles 2, they were using other things, toys and salami and stuff.
Oh, is that really why?
Yeah.
I never
Oh
put that
yeah.
together.
So that was a bit of a tangent, but the reason I bring up G2 is Gunther was the rival coach. I don't know if you knew that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
that's the rival coach.
Yeah.
And do you remember the little subplot with Coach Bombay and the
Dating the
rival
girl.
coach's yeah
The
assistant?
the girl, right?
Right. You know that expression, sleeping with the enemy. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of what Chosen did, right? Or is
Eh,
that a reach?
I think it's a reach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's a reach.
But like that's the actor from part two of Mighty Ducks,
Yeah.
and
All right.
and so I don't
And
know.
that's what's cool, right? Like that's what this show is designed to do. It's supposed to bring you back to that happy place
There's
of
like
nostalgia.
inspirations from pop culture,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
then for you it did that, right?
Yeah,
And that's cool.
yeah, yeah.
But Mighty Ducks too, I mean, they only have like one or two Ice Team Iceland people that had speaking roles, I think, in that,
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
right? But you saw the whole group together.
it's
And
a
it
hockey team. It's a
huh?
little bit different.
And even in like the off ice like off ice scenes, like you see so many of them together, they're intimidating.
I'd have to go back and look,
And
but
I just really wish we would have got to see Cobras like that because the show is called Cobra Kai.
yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Like I
but our
wish
main dojo's Miyagi-Do.
I wanted this second batch to be the Empire Strikes Back of the three batches.
Okay, huh?
I wanted Cobra Kai to get up here so that when Miyagi ultimately wins at the end, it feels better.
We'll just have to see what the hell they
Yeah,
do, and
well, they never built up Cobra Kai and they killed their leader,
yeah, yeah.
so
So somebody's gonna give Quan some magical serum
yeah,
or revive him,
yeah, yeah.
anime style or
Sensei Kim
something.
will just do the little
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
right?
I
Yeah.
think so. I think that's exactly. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to get Master Kim. I don't know if Sensei Kim has lived up to her grandfather's like expectations of
or
being a
or
master.
maybe they'll go find that snake again and get the venom
Right.
for that
Yeah.
to heal him or something.
Okay. So, anything else you could think of before we the last thing I want to talk about, or at least that I have in my
Go for it.
notes,
No, you go
is
for
the dream sequence.
it. No, I think we kind of nailed most of it. God, that fifth episode was fantastic though.
Yeah,
It was it's the second batch is a lot better than the first batch. I just think that some of the misses were really bad misses.
yeah, okay. Okay, so if nothing else, let's talk about that dream sequence. So this is Daniel's dream sequence. It's his manifestation of Mr. Miyagi. So
Yeah,
that's kind of an important like note, the caveat, you know. So however you go in and see this betrayal and what you thought Mr. Miyagi might be. This isn't Cobra Kai's show betrayal of Mr. Miyagi. It's Daniel's mind, right? So, in this dream sequence, we kind of follow the back of a gi. It's a bonsai, and I just love how the episode starts. Do you kind of remember what the opening? Um, I don't know if it's title cards or whatever, but do you remember what it looked like, kind of starting? They made it look all old timey, like some static.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I got like there's some filters going on there.
Do you have an idea what was about to happen?
I knew immediately when you see any kind of fuzz and blur, it's like, oh, it's got to be an imagination thing or a dream sequence.
Right.
I remember seeing the initial things of just that figure,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh, is that Miyagi? Oh, it is. I think it's Miyagi. All right, I hope they don't show his face. Oh, all right, they're showing his face. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I hope it was gonna stay really vague just to like drive in that it's a dream. But other than that, I didn't really have any problems with it. I
Yeah,
thought that was
definitely.
really well done
Hmm. I thought,
because it's Daniel's conscience, really, not
right,
reality. So
right, right.
yeah, those are his fears, and it felt really real. Everything felt earned.
Yeah,
They've been putting so much time and attention into that stuff. Like
right.
that was it was a great scene.
I still don't think that's resolved because
No,
again,
it's not.
yeah, I need to figure out what happens to the Master Serrano,
Yeah.
you know. So there's answers that Daniel hasn't gotten yet, and um, oh crap, what was I gonna say? It was about Miyagi. Um, I don't know. I like the look of everything. I really lost my train of thought, man. You have any other thoughts to maybe it'll help you jog mine?
I think kind of where I draw from it is I think we're coming to the conclusion where Daniel is starting to realize slowly, like maybe, you know, obviously Miyagi's not who he wants to be, and then that's going to cause an identity crisis for him, right? Or, and then so I think the conclusion of that is like, yeah, I mean, maybe karate isn't everything. I think that's the theme for Daniel and Johnny is karate isn't everything, and you find balance not just on the battlefield, but outside of it. So like
Yeah.
in life. So I think that's why we're seeing all this stuff, and I think that's the direction we're going, is my from my perspective.
Hmm.
And both of them, I mean, and then now you're seeing people that dedicate their lives to karate. They're going to this Sakai Takai, and guess what happens? They all like just lose their minds and get in a big fight, and someone ends up dying, you know. And we're the damn coaches, we're the damn senseis to like stop this, you know. Like, so I'm just in my worldview, it just feels like karate shouldn't be everything in your life, and you're supposed to move away from it. And I think that's what they're trying to portray.
Right. The idea of when they showed us that the standings, the records were that old timey
Mhm.
thing, and it shows like Miyagi and
Death or
yeah,
some murder.
his opponent, and it said death. And at one point, it was in the first episode. It's episode 6. During the sponsorship, or actually, no, no, maybe it was in the same episode. But Gunther mentions that that no, it wasn't sponsorship because they were looking at the headband and it had blood on it. And Gunther says a line about back then there were more more deaths or something like that. But in that thing, we didn't see it, but
I didn't see any other deaths in that thing
yeah, so it just might be like that one sheet, that happened to
for
have
that
like
one year.
Miyagi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and take a look at that sheet because it sounds like deaths have happened, but maybe but why was it Miyagi? Was it him and was it just it came down to these two and that's the only names that's on that list? Maybe that's the list of like the two finalists, and then
It
it
was in the
was
middle of the list, though, right?
was
So
it
it doesn't really per se that that happened in the finals. It just happened
unless
at some point,
unless
right?
that list is just like by years of who were the competitors
Yeah, I didn't look that
yeah, yeah,
deeply
yeah.
into it.
I need to because I want to know. This is one of those things where I'm looking like too deep into it. Well,
No, that's why you're a
oh
podcaster.
sure, well, but
That's why you're the best Cobra Kai podcaster.
stop it. No, no, no. That's only because you don't listen to some of my friends, who I
Uh,
think are great.
okay. Well,
Um,
you're gonna ruin this
stop, stop,
tan, bro.
stop. But anyway, uh, yeah, you threw me off with that. Um, because I'm wondering the result in the death, no matter what happens, right? It sounds like it was kind of a rare thing, but it happened. People died.
That's how I got it.
Now, does that mean something as little as like it could have been a freak accident, or it's like, well, damn, Miyagi was that, badass of a fighter that like it just kind of resulted that way,
They're trying
and
to
shit kind
portray
of
that
happens.
they're trying to make it vague,
Yeah,
right?
right. A little
Because
ambiguous. You could just,
they do,
yeah.
because like early on, what is Chosen show Daniel, the little death touch stuff about how to
Oh,
like disable a guy, right?
mhm.
So it's like they're trying to leave it up there. It's like, oh, was Miyagi super violent or brutal, or we don't know.
And see, and again, it's so hard because it's a damn dream sequence, so
Yeah.
it's not like black or white, right? It's not, they're actually telling us this is Daniel's dream. We interpret it
And
how
he
we
could be
want.
interpreting wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what we do see is like, when Daniel is knocked down and Miyagi like holds him up, and then like Daniel's closing, he's like going in and out a little bit, and then like the young Miyagi transitions to like modern day Miyagi. Great effect, kind of like young Johnny, right, in the therapist scene in season 5. Um, he's doing the thing where he's gonna do the honk.
Yeah.
So like I think they're kind of giving us, right, like that's why Miyagi honks now, because like maybe that's what resulted in
Right.
the death. Yeah,
I love that retcon,
yeah,
man. That's so cool.
yeah.
I love that.
You know what's crazy is the first time I watched it, my 12-year-old happened to be in the room, and he's the one that like, oh, I thought he was gonna do the honk. Then I thought about it, go, holy shit, that is this, yeah, that's that shot and that's the
Yeah.
move.
So
I
awesome.
didn't even pick up on that
You
at
didn't?
first. Man, I was shocked by the look of modern day Miyagi, and I was like, that's Pat's voice,
You
so
suck.
yeah,
He
hey
didn't pick
man,
that up.
I did not like your reaction to the ending.
Okay.
I was just like, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it went in a different way.
all right.
And you didn't laugh at Chosen running off in the electric
It was
chair.
funny. It just wasn't laugh out loud funny.
Man, I bet you if somebody put that on a t-shirt, that'd be a hot seller.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah.
Chosen does that like literally every season. Like he has like one line like that, right? Like
Yeah,
or one moment like that.
yeah, he has something, right? Like this is a physical thing, whereas like in part one, it was more like some more dialogue, like stuff with Amanda,
Yeah.
like well, you balanced out the trade or whatever, something like that. But yeah, I really like the sequence with Mr. Miyagi. I know shout outs to Mike Cobra Kai Wisdom. He put out this like theory after like dissecting everything in the box and the article and all that. He predicted that not only would we get answers, but we would actually see this.
Yeah.
Like the flashback. We could maybe even still get that in part three, but this is not far off from what he was kind of guessing. Like, yeah, we got to see Miyagi, you know?
What do you want to see in part three? Like him killing someone?
No, no, not killing somebody, but maybe some more flashbacks of like him around that time, like during the Sekai Tekai. Maybe Daniel is getting more information, and we just get like a flashback. I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what I want. That might be all of it. That might be all we got of young Miyagi. And again, that point that I lost earlier, it was almost back, and then I freaking lost it again. But
I'm of the opinion less is more. So if you're gonna show
yes.
young Miyagi again, like make it count.
Okay. So there we go. I just thought about it. I had a feeling that we would see his face, and you were saying, did you say you were hoping to them obscure it a little bit
No,
more?
I wasn't saying hoping.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh,
You were expecting.
they're not gonna show his face. Oh, they're showing his face. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was more surprise. Like,
So I guess what I was trying to say is I expected to see his face because they gave us that passport, which was clearly him.
mm.
You know, um,
Oh, it's the same actor.
it's the same actor,
Oh,
yes.
okay, I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
It is the same actor
got it.
because there's been times where we'll see a
Oh,
photo.
that's cool then. Then
Yeah,
so I'm just not that deep to catch that
yeah,
then.
yeah. Also because I interviewed him, and so we
Yeah,
talk about
sure,
that.
sure, sure.
Yeah,
It's the best podcast.
but the um because they did something before where we would see a photo of somebody And also like the other version of that is when we see the obscured version of Master Kim in the flashback in season 5. They wouldn't cast that character until season 6, and that's when we finally see his face,
Okay.
right? So they obscured him, and so all you saw was this figure. And
And maybe that's why I thought that, I
yeah,
and
that maybe they would do that
yeah.
because. And then the other example was when Johnny and Daniel were Facebook stalking Allie, and then they showed her husband, right? And they're like, "Oh, look at that stupid face, or look at that dumb face," and then Daniel's like, "Oh, what an asshole," you know. And so it was like, but what you look at, what you see is like, oh, just kind of a like a undescript handsome dude,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
Like
don't,
an NPC. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I think I read somewhere, or maybe John Hurwitz might have answered in a Q&A on X, back then Twitter. I think they purposely shot it and did things to it to in the event for some reason they want to cast that character and have him in the show. They made it so that way it could be anybody. And so when the passport was shown, and when I looked at that, I go, Pat Morita. And because it was a different actor, I go, are they going to bring back young Miyagi? That's what I got from that passport.
Mm, mm,
I felt like, why would you hire an actor unless you're going to use that actor, right?
yeah.
Because like, then why not just get a young picture of young Pat Morita?
I think that's kind of maybe I did not want them to show his face too,
Mm,
just because I want the only image of Miyagi to be Pat
yeah.
Morita in my eyes.
Mm,
But I will say that the actor that played him, like his mannerisms, everything, it didn't throw the illusion off. Like I bought in,
hmm And,
but
and it's still Daniel's dream sequence too,
yeah,
And so in the event we ever see this actor again,
yeah,
there's room for fine tuning, right?
sure.
Because still, even what we know of Mr. Miyagi from the films, what we're finding out with season 6, that there's stuff we do also don't know about that Mr. Miyagi. So so they have a lot of room that they could possibly play with. But and now I'm also kind of like, I got like one foot in a speculations for a possible spin-off thing. So we'll just leave.
What does the hardcore fandom like think of the flashback scenes in general? Because for me, I can take it or leave it.
Hmm
There's been some that have been excellent for me, but majority I just feel like it's detracted away from the kids. And I just always been of the opinion that they should focus more on the kids.
When they're longer sequences, like a young Kreese
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Silver
just
or
young,
something
yeah,
like that.
just all those sequences because it's like, all right, so I always felt that they were kind of not the most important. So I think maybe subliminally I did think like, all right, I hope they don't show Miyagi's face. I hope they show Miyagi's face. Like, I don't want to have to like lump it together with young Terry, young Kreese, right? So,
Mm.
or maybe it's just out of my memory. I just want to have Pat Morita be the only image for Miyagi in my mind.
Yeah, I don't mind the flashbacks. I thought you were actually talking about the actual flashbacks when we get like a reintroduction of a legacy character
Uh-huh.
and we flash back to like, oh, that's who
Oh,
that is.
that the young ones, the young ones, yeah. The young Kreese and young
Right, right, right.
yeah, Silver.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so but that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't think I really I I didn't I'm not as invested as in those characters
Hmm.
as I am of a Mr. Miyagi. So I think that'd
Correct.
be more of a bias thing
Yeah,
because I feel there's probably a lot of people that'd be like, no, I love the stuff with like young Kreese and young Silver because it's
yeah.
those characters, but they're younger. And but to me, it's like, yeah, but they're played by different characters, which is fine because
And one was related to Martin Cove, right?
no,
None of them are? Oh,
no,
I thought that one of them was. My
mm-mm,
mistake. Okay.
no. Yeah, because Nick Marini plays young Silver, and then Barrett Carnahan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You might be thinking of Jessica, his son, who was in the scene with young Kreese.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought I didn't love those flashback scenes because maybe I felt like there was a lot of them
Yeah.
because we spent a lot of time in season 3 with like the Vietnam stuff setting up, and I think that might have been one of the first times where they're like maybe we can explore this and give a lot more
Yeah.
because something that was similar to that they did was I don't know if this is the same. You tell me. But in the first episode, which you just watched, where Johnny goes back to the All Valley Arena and he sees. the beginning of part two being played out in
I
front of them.
love that how that
That's
worked.
great. Yeah,
The visuals were
yeah.
fantastic.
And speaking with the creators for the very first time, in my interview, they talked about how they toyed with the idea of possibly like how does Johnny visualize this? Is it in the ether? But no, it's just like right there in front
He
of
put
him.
himself there.
Yeah, and I remember again back in the days when John Hurwitz used to do the Q&As more often. I asked him about that because he gave me like Back to the Future 2 vibes,
Yeah,
where Marty is in alternate, or he goes back to 1955,
sees himself.
yeah, and sees like prime Marty McFly as
Yeah,
well. And anyway, so that's kind of so I liked stuff like that, but then almost giving us like a little side story of like, oh, young Kreese and Silver. I didn't really care as much.
yeah.
Um,
I think that's why I was worried about showing Marita. I mean, showing
Yeah.
um,
And it's a dream
Miyagi.
sequence and it was short enough. Stuff like that, I don't mind.
I didn't mind.
And another stuff, another thing I didn't mind was like, um, there was a part of like young Kreese and Silver. I guess it could be when they were like in Korea. Like I can use small doses of those,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe I could put like a better.
Did you lump those together like I did then, or was it just me? Daniel's dream sequences with those like early young.
No,
No, you never did.
I wouldn't.
You
Yeah,
separated. You
yeah,
separated.
I
Okay.
did, I did. Because this, even if I wasn't processing it in real time, that
Yeah.
oh, this is a dream sequence.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, oh, this is cool. The idea of Daniel fighting his mentor,
Yeah. In his mind too.
in
In
his
his
mind,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, like I wasn't even processing dream sequence. I'm like, this is visually cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
But when you're watching like an actual story playing out with these characters and, learning about their time in Vietnam, I was like, I don't know if I really needed that, and it's fine. Those
Yeah.
actors did great, but
I thought they could have cut like 2/3 of it out.
yeah,
When would have been enough.
right. And then focus that stuff on more Team Korea, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
All right. I think we're getting ready to wrap up here. Is there anything else you could think of? I'm sure we
Yeah.
can keep going on because there's just so
So
much
much.
that happened, and I bet you we probably spent more time what sounds like criticizing part two, but I think in general it was a really great
It
watch.
was way better than one.
Yeah.
I think that the mistakes that were my criticisms or something, sorry, like could have been things that were executed better. Like
Hmm.
they weren't like huge flaws. I had problems with some of the like
They're just little
char-
nitpicks.
I had problems with some of the character motivations. I didn't think they were
Hmm.
authentic to what I think that character should do. A few times I had problems with some of the pacing. Some things
Hmm.
felt really drawn out, and then some things just got way too fast. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
they were cramming everything together. And I get it. They have a lot of characters they want to do justice to, a lot of storylines they want to pay off, but
Right.
it just felt really quick. And then when I watched season one, episode one, I didn't really get that impression. Like the pacing just felt really grounded.
Yeah.
Like it felt like a continuation of the movie.
It's so hard. I do think that it's the problem of having so many really great characters and wanting to kind of give them their flowers, before the series end. And I'm just like,
Mm,
man.
you save it for a spinoff, man.
Well, my
Yeah.
thing is like one of the things that I'm and there's probably a reason, and if I heard it, maybe it changes my mind, but just underutilizing Carmen. We got more of her in part one than we did in part two.
I think I'm okay with it though. Like
Okay.
that's kind of how I wish the third wave of kids were like that too. Like they serve their purpose.
Hmm.
Let's move on.
Okay.
So
I do love that the moment once they walk into the hospital room and see the blood and both,
oh, that was good.
yeah, both Johnny and Miguel. Oh man, just really good acting from them both. Because there's the thing that Billy
And it's
Batfield.
grounded. And
Yeah.
and you see them together, and that's like the heart of the show, in my opinion,
It
is
it
those
it
two.
kind of takes you back to almost well, at least like Johnny was in the hospital when it was about Miguel. He visited the hospital to see Miguel and help him rehab, and now they're there together and it's over like the mom. I'm not trying to like make any sort of connections and say like it means anything, but just like the hospital scenes are also all emotional. And yeah, I love it when things make me feel, and that's what
Good.
makes things memorable. So like a lot of these team events that they have during the tournament, there's so many of them, and some of them are just kind of like, well, that's fine. I have a hard time almost placing like what episode that was even in and like what that was about, kind of thing, you know. But we are sold that this is a very big deal, and so they're showing us. But I don't know, maybe there's just some things that we don't need to see as much, or maybe there's other decisions that could have made that could have, you know.
I guess so yeah, it was pacing, character choices, and those are two of the main ones, but oh, and like choreography and stuff just didn't really feel right. Like as far as like decision making, I remember Tori stealing Zara's phone, right?
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
And it's like I would feel like Zara wouldn't want to be embarrassed in front of her followers or whatever, and she's physically capable. I don't think her character would have just taken it like that. Like she probably would have hit her back, in my opinion, right? Don't you think?
That's a great question.
Because now she looks like a wimp in front of her followers.
Well, so there's the thing. Do you remember what happened following after
Go ahead and light me.
that? She lost a couple sponsors,
Uh-huh.
and so maybe that's why, because she's
She lost them
live.
because she got embarrassed on her own stream.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, could be.
yeah. No, I think that's what to believe, because she mentions that, and she was like looking at her phone, and I think she was with Axel. I think it's when they were in the lobby and Axel's staring over
Yeah.
towards Miguel and Sam. I think she mentions like, "Oh, great, I just lost two more sponsors or something."
Okay.
So I think that
But
was directly.
you still could have done that and stayed true to the character. Like she could have tried to hit Tori like and then lost, and then she lost the sponsor because she's weaker than Tori.
Yeah, I
You know, but
think
she wouldn't have been passive and just taken it. Just like Robbie wouldn't have been passive all
I
those
don't know.
times too.
I could believe her not wanting, like think about her followers, right? Maybe she wants to set a good example as well,
Wow.
and
She was
doesn't
talking
want.
about she's like her record. She was talking about her records and how she was beating everybody.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, but you're right. Like if you defend yourself now you're looking badass in front of your followers. But
Yeah,
I think about sponsorship, like that's a big deal, right? Like that's.
but she lost sponsors and she didn't defend herself.
Yeah, but I think that's, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't know, but like because things that Tori was saying,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I don't know.
Like to the sponsors, like this girl just got punked and didn't do anything. They're like, we don't want to sponsor you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's the stuff that Tori was saying about what she did, and
Yeah.
maybe because it was live and a lot of people saw that, that's why the sponsors,
No,
it
it could
wasn't
be.
so much of because she didn't defend herself or whatever,
I don't think that matters.
because they could be like, oh, well, she was a good example by not looking like a fool, but except, instead this other competitor said these nasty things about her and she didn't deny them, kind of thing.
I feel like if you're talking to your followers only and someone's talking crap, your followers are so loyal to you that
Yeah.
they're going to disregard that anyways.
Yeah, I think you're right. I
Yeah.
think you're right. Um, but yeah, that is a good question. But that's kind of that's what I am convincing myself of. Like I think she just didn't want to do that in front
Yeah.
of the camera.
And
Yeah,
then if you're gonna like, I still don't understand this whole sponsor thing, but all right, let's just run with their sponsor thing.
yeah.
She has a lot of sponsors, so she should have flaunted her stuff, right? Like she's there, she has a lot of sponsors. Like, why don't you just give her cool outfits, cool purses, or whatever to flaunt, whatever,
Okay.
And then like now, like oh, because she's an influencer motivated by the sponsors and the money. It would have been cool to like see like now she's like freaking out about losing the sponsors. Like maybe her lavish lifestyle goes away too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens in part three.
Yeah, we'll see how happens part three.
All right. I think that we can end it right there. Man, I don't even
You have
know
a
how
grade?
long.
You have a
uh,
grade? You have a grade on the?
Ah, well, I don't know. Did we do
No,
anything like that?
I don't think we do, but
Yeah. I mean, I would hate to give something now without seeing the finished product, because I
nah,
mean,
you want an opinion now, and you can change it with hindsight. Like
okay. Well, I mean, I would really have to marinate on that. I like a lot of the episodes. I think 6 and 8 are my two favorite.
okay,
6 is the one where it's, everyone's meeting each other. It's the field trip episode. It's what else happens in that one? I like that one. And then 8 is the one where they're out in town,
mm,
Chozen and Kim.
that
Um,
was the best one. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm almost certain that's also the plane episode as well.
mm,
So
that
I
was the
didn't
best
love
one.
I didn't love the passenger stuff on the
No,
plane, but I love what happened at the end.
the
Yeah,
payoff was good.
yeah, the payoff. There you go. So, all right, that's it. We'll end it right there. Thank you guys for tuning into this recap of season six, part two. Some interviews will be coming out if you like those things, and episode breakdowns will come. We literally wrapped up, the first batch of five just right before part two here is about to drop. So, um, in my personal life, I'm at that point at work where work is getting really demanding, and so I don't have a whole lot of time to put these out on a regular basis. But yeah, expect a lot of things, and I'll drop them when I can. So I want to thank you guys for your continued support, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right, see ya.